This is one of the longest discussions I've ever made, so timestamps in the description and in the pinned comment. Let's get into it. Guys, Zelda movie officially in the works already so quick. This is the third Nintendo franchise related movie, counting Detective Pikachu, the infamous Super Mario Bros. Movie we got this year, and of course, now the biggest surprise announcement of the year, the Legend of Zelda movie. I have prepared a somewhat structured discussion here with a good friend and fellow YouTuber, Nish Quick Pops. What's going on, man? How are you feeling?
Hey man, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Skylink. And like I said in one of my videos yesterday, I am nervously excited for this Zelda movie. Like, I am still kind of just like we were talking about this before we started. I'm still like kind of processing that all of this is really happening. Like, it still hasn't really hit me because like I can kind of give you a quick rundown of how I like reacted to this yesterday. So I was just like chilling yesterday, just doing some like normal stuff. And then I got like a Discord notification and it was on like a Zelda like Discord server. And I didn't see the Twitter preview for the tweet, but I just saw that the person pinged everyone in this channel or in the server and he said, really amazing news. So I immediately looked, I was like, what is it? Like Tears of the Kingdom DLC, Ocarina of Time remake, what is this? And it was Miyamoto saying that there's a live action Zelda movie in the works. And once I started to read more about it, like my like feelings like were just I have a lot of feelings. I have a lot of like opinions and thoughts about this because like you, Zelda is like my number one favorite thing ever. So yeah, I guess we can like talk more about this and like see how this all turns out, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm with you. I feel I have like I mean, right after the initial announcement, I was very mixed, had a lot of mixed feelings because there's a lot to look forward to and a lot to be worried about. So we got a lot to discuss. I've taken notes and wrote out several questions, a total of 11 questions, and
Yeah.
each question being a topic that we discuss as we progress forward. So let's start out with the first question here. How are you feeling about the Zelda movie being live action instead of an animated
Oh,
film like how we originally discussed when we played 3D World?
oh boy. I have a lot to say about this. Basically, when it comes to like a live action Zelda movie, I will be honest, that's not initially what I wanted this to be. I wanted it to be animated. Maybe like everyone says like Studio Ghibli or Studio Ghibli style of animation. Maybe not even kind of like that. Maybe like what I love about the Zelda series is every single game looks different in its own way in terms of its art style, but none of them are very strikingly realistic. And that is the big thing I want to emphasize about like whole live action thing. Zelda to me, and you can like provide your feelings on this as well because I want to get your take on this. Zelda to me has never been realistic. It has never been a realistic fantasy. Like when I think of like realistic fantasies, there's obviously something like Game of Thrones, but there's also something like Lord of the Rings. And like
Right.
I haven't watched Lord of the Rings in a while. It's been a little bit of time since I've seen Lord of the Rings. But Lord of the Rings is a little more on the grittier side, a little more on the darker, grittier side than something like The Legend of Zelda to me. And if I look at The Legend of Zelda's like realistic, grittier entries, I can only think of 1.5 games, and or I mean I can even say 1 and 1/4 games, and that is one is of course Twilight Princess. That is the one everyone like we will always remember. Twilight Princess is like the realistic Zelda game. Number
Absolutely.
two is, get this, the Zelda Wii U tech demo. Those are the only two things, one full-length game and one tech demo
One and
that
one fourth.
only, yeah, those are the only two things that are very heavily realistic in Zelda. Everything else is fantastical, whimsical, animated. Like it's very like um I don't really know a good way to explain it. I think a good word to describe it is just whimsical. Like you look at something like
Yeah,
Ocarina of
whimsical's good.
Time. Yeah, you see like some characters in Ocarina of Time, like the magic bean salesman, or the old hag in the Kakariko Village potion shop, or the mad scientist. Like these guys aren't realistic. Like it's straight from like an old anime or a manga for Ocarina of Time. Wind Waker, like you see like all these like kids running around with these cartoony art style. It is a very cartoony, cel-shaded art style. 100% not realistic. Skyward Sword looks like a watercolor painting. When you look at characters like all the salesmen in the bazaar, like they don't look realistic to me either. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are more realistic for sure, but they're still heavily like more of the cel-shaded, stylistic kind of vibe with more of like a Studio Ghibli anime style to them. So my point is, Zelda's never been dark, gritty, realistic, except for Twilight Princess and the Wii U tech demo. So that's what makes me very hesitant with this being live action. So what are your thoughts? Because I want to know what you think about this as well.
So, I mean, I'm with you on that. Whimsical, like I said, whimsical is a great word to describe the Zelda series. There's definitely a lot of silliness with a lot of things. Definitely, of course, as it is a Nintendo property, most Nintendo properties are not realistic, and Zelda is a medieval fantasy that definitely has a little bit more of a sillier side. Of course, it's never been like obviously like the darkest game. I mean, visually and with the tone was Twilight Princess, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, and even Twilight Princess had its more like silly moments as well. So I'm totally with you that like Zelda being like a serious live action film is one of Nintendo's biggest challenges, if not probably the biggest, when it comes to expanding their IPs. Because this, we'll talk a lot about this, but there's just like so much that goes into this process, and Nintendo's taking a huge risk here. Especially because Zelda's not like Mario. And the fact that it's not like, if it was animated, it would kind of make sense, like, transitioning from the Super Mario Brothers movie to like Zelda movie also being animated, but it being like live action. Like when you compare live action Zelda to the animated Super Mario Brothers movie, like there's no like clear connection there, like there's no, like, at least to the average person. So yeah, this is definitely pretty crazy.
Yeah, and you mentioned this, like even in Twilight Princess you have like characters and people that are more on the campy side. Like you have like I don't remember exactly their names, but you have those people in Lake Hylia who are like in charge of the Kuko mini game. And they're like very silly, like they're like those clown people who are in charge of the Kuko mini game. And then you have characters like Telma, you have characters like the little kids, you have that one I don't remember this guy's name, but he's that guy in Kakariko Village who's looking after the kids, but he's kind of like that blacksmith guy who's like always got like that visor over his face, but he's also like a really goofy guy. Like you can have this stuff in a live action, you can make it work, but it's not going to I don't think it'll translate well. It could, but it would have a very drastically different feel. Like I'm not going into this movie, and I'm not going into like this like lead up for this movie like expecting something like Ocarina of Time, because Ocarina of Time has that whimsical quality to it, even though it has its really dark moments, like when Ganon takes over and you have the Redeads and like Shadow Temple, Bottom of the Well, you have that stuff. But there is a certain tone to the game that remains consistent throughout the entire game, which when you're not doing it in animation, you lose a lot of that freedom and you lose a lot of that kind of whimsicality to it. So that's my biggest fear with this being live action, aside from them working with so many other people and having to cast real people and Link talking and all that. I don't know. But I want to ask you specifically, have you seen Lord of the Rings? And what do you think about this movie kind of emulating the Lord of the Rings style? I want to know what you think about that.
Like most like Lord of the Ring and Zelda fans would say,
Yeah.
I know Joey from Game Explain said this, that he doesn't
Mhm.
expect this like Zelda movie to be at all like Lord of the Rings. Like Lord of the Rings will still remain superior.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
doesn't see Zelda topping it. And I have seen Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen the first one. I have the second two on my list,
Okay.
but I did see the
Okay.
extended version of the first movie.
Okay.
You know, and there's a lot to unpack there. I'm probably even gonna
Yeah.
watch it again because it's been so long since I've seen it.
I would say the first one feels the most like Zelda, and the other two, you could say that, yeah, they kind of do, but the other two get like really like dark and really like gritty. And like, I'm not talking like Game of Thrones dark, no, but like Tolkien's Middle Earth, like series, it is most notably, like, it is 100% like it is a darker kind of vibe than Zelda to me personally. That's just what I think, that's what I feel. But I remember when I first watched these movies, I always thought to myself, I wouldn't it be cool if Zelda was like this? Wouldn't it be cool if Zelda had this kind of grandeur and like it was just this badass and cool, right? Well,
Right.
Zelda is badass and cool in its own way, and it has its own like epicness and grandeur and gravitas in its own way. And like, it's not that I'm saying Lord of the Rings sucks. They shouldn't emulate Lord of the Rings, but I think they should lend more into what makes Zelda Zelda instead of deviating into something like this. Because like the later Lord of the Rings gets so much more into like the realism that it doesn't feel like a kind of like whimsical fantasy story like Zelda does. But one more thing I will say about this whole Lord of the Rings thing is there are some like still very whimsical aspects of Lord of the Rings. It's not a complete dark, dire like thing the entire time. There's humor, there's funny characters, there's funny moments, but I think Zelda is very special in how it does it. So yeah, I'm just a little nervous about that.
Yeah, the Nintendo's really gonna have to step it up, especially when how they're gonna approach this whole thing, which we'll dive into as we move
Hmm.
further through these topics and questions here. But let's move on to the second one now. So, how are we feeling about this partnership between Nintendo and Sony Entertainment? Like, Sony is one of Nintendo's, like, at least was at one point, one of their
Yeah,
biggest rivals. And Avi Arad, or Avi Arad, I'm gonna go with Avi Arad because I've
yeah.
heard like a super nerdy guy call him Avi Arad. Like his involvement of all people, and we're gonna kind of for people watching this who are like more specific, like Nintendo and Zelda fans. Like we're gonna kind of get out of the box a little bit and talk about like the movie industry
Hmm.
with Avi Arad and Sony Entertainment Pictures with the Spider-Man movies and stuff like that. Because if you didn't know, Avi Arad has had a huge hand in the development of pretty much every single Spider-Man movie and some
Hmm.
shows. And also, while I was writing this, we also found out that it was confirmed Derek Connolly is writing the script, which he wrote the script for Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of
Yes.
Skywalker. He wrote the script for Detective Pikachu, which is also really interesting, and Jurassic World.
Hmm.
So a lot of these movies, most people would say that they're good. Maybe not like the best movies ever, but at least say that they're good. So Nishquick, with Sony, Avi Arad, and Derek Connolly in mind, what are you thinking with, like, aside from Nintendo's involvement, what are you thinking with all of these, people's involvement in the project?
So, specifically Avi Arad, I will say, I like way back during the w- it was during like the pre-Tom Holland Spider-Man days. I will say that
Mm,
because I used to follow like Marvel Studios, Marvel Entertainment, all the way back to like like I would say like leading I started really following them leading up to like Avengers Age of Ultron. That's when I really started to keep up with all this stuff. And that's when like I was hearing a lot of the stuff like leading up to Marvel bringing Spider-Man over to the MCU and all that. And the one big name I kept hearing was Avi Arad. And the reason I kept hearing his name specifically was because he has his credentials, as you can see on like IMDb. He's responsible for producing a lot of like very big budget, very big scale movies. Spider-Verse, all the Spider-Man movies,
Exactly.
Uncharted, Venom, Morbius, some really good, some not so good, but I will say the one thing, when I saw Avi Arad's name in that tweet and that press release, the thing I immediately remembered is the many times people have said that he was responsible for a lot of creative differences in a lot of the productions he was involved in. Creative differences meaning like he he was responsible for Venom being kind of shoehorned into Spider-Man 3, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3 movie. He was kind of responsible for Venom being kind of shoehorned in there last minute, and that's why that kind of felt really out of place and people didn't really vibe with like that whole Venom inclusion. And another thing, the one that I remember the most is he was also responsible for a lot of the kind of questionable decisions regarding Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. Questionable decisions may like meaning like some choices regarding the character of Peter and Gwen Stacy and the inclusion of some villains in the movie and all that. Like I remember a lot of people. I remember I don't quote me on this. I have to go back and do some research on this. I should have actually like I did some quick like Google searches on this, but I couldn't find much. I need to go back and look. But I remember there was something about like Sony Pictures Entertainment. They had like some sort of like an email leak, and within that email leak, there was like some evidence pointing towards the fact that like Avi Arad was kind of hesitant to include a lot of the aspects of big like comic book Spider-Man stuff that Kevin Feige wanted, because Kevin Feige was still involved in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, not as much as he is of course in the MCU now, but the whole like, just to bring it full circle, he is responsible for like having a lot of creative differences. But I think the silver lining in all this is Miyamoto was saying that he has been working with Avi Arad on this for a long time now.
Years.
I
Yeah,
don't remember how long he has said that,
he
but
said a
or
few
how,
years.
yeah,
Yeah, 2+ years at least.
yeah. So like, what research have you gathered? Because like one thing I want to say is like he is very like he has Spider-Man, but he also has Uncharted, and he has Morbius, and he has Venom. So he has some like really big hits, and he has some like really like rock bottom like failures as well. So what do you think this means for The Legend of Zelda?
Yes.
Another adaptation IP he's taking on.
Yeah, with Avi Arad specifically, well, first of all, with Sony, it's just a surprise in general. Like I said earlier in the discussion, like Nintendo and Sony used to be like rivals. This is so crazy that they're working together to make Zelda.
Yeah, that is kind
Yeah,
of crazy.
like
Even though it's not, it is Sony Pictures Entertainment and not Sony Interactive Entertainment, but still,
that's a good
no, it's
point.
still
Yeah,
that
I didn't
still
put that
goes to show,
together.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, even though you're right, it is a different like division. Yeah, it's still super interesting. So with Avi Arad, yeah, the a lot of information I had. Well, first of all, when I first heard about in the initial announcement yesterday, when I first heard that he was helping make the Zelda movie, the first thing that came to my mind where there was this YouTuber I used to watch, and he literally said F Avi Arad. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to cuss in this, but he literally said F Avi Arad. Strong hate. A lot of the comments too, like strong hate against him, and a lot of it. And you kind of touched on one of the biggest things about it was when they released information about Avi Arad throwing Venom into Spider-Man 3 last second, and they had to, like, literally, like, at the 11th hour, like, you know, almost done with the, you know, script and the production, literally had to throw Venom in there, you know, throw him in the script, and it led to Spider-Man 3 not being as good as it could have been. And, you know, and that's just crazy. There's just a lot of greed. Like, oh yeah, let's throw Venom in here because the kids love Venom, merchandise, toys, right? And so he was just more like about the money than making a good story. And then, like you said, creative differences, even in the beginning of the Tom Holland era. So once Disney and Sony made the deal with, you know, the Spider-Man home series movies, Avi Arad, for example, had a big creative difference in Spider-Man Homecoming, where a lot of it was like Spider-Man's fault, and he had to learn from his own mistakes to move forward, you know, by, you know, Tony Stark taking a suit and stuff like that. But originally, I think Captain America was supposed to have a bigger role than just being in those like VHS tapes for the school.
Yeah.
Like, Captain America was supposed to be more heavily involved, and that was supposed to kind of like create more of a plot there with Spider-Man trying to prove himself instead of learning from his mistakes.
Oh, interesting.
And,
you know what's interesting
yeah.
about that is I remember when Tom Holland and like other people were like they went through like extensive like they went through a lot of auditions for a lot of people for Spider-Man. And one of the big things that they did for Spider-Man is they had the guys auditioning for it. They had them audition with not only Robert Downey Jr., but they had a big audition with Chris Evans as well for Captain America. So that's interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's crazy that, like, you know, all this whole process behind all these like Spider-Man movies. But anyway, not to kind of, you know, drift off too much from Zelda, because we are talking Zelda here. I mean, I love Spider-Man too, but you know, we're focusing on Zelda here. But how do we feel about Derek Connolly and the scripts that he's done? I have his IMDb open if you have any questions about his work. Like I said, he did the Jurassic World movies, Detective Pikachu, Star Wars Episode 9. Those are like the big ones. Kong, Skull Island, Monster Trucks, which, even though that movie's not that popular, that does tie into that does tie into some of my casting choices.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because I haven't seen all of Monster Trucks, but from what I saw of it, I honestly kind of enjoyed it. It was kind of a fun movie, just like a fun, silly movie,
right? And one of the reasons I was looking when I was looking for the casting, I like actually used a lot of movies that had similar actors in common, and I found that Monster Trucks had some actors in common with some of the X-Men movies that Avi Arad worked on, which is really interesting, which, like I said, led to a lot of my led to a lot of my casting choices, because, you know, and of course with Wes Ball as well, the director. Wes Ball, obviously his most famous work is the Maze Runner series. There's like similar actors that I found in Maze Runner, directed by Wes Ball, Monster Trucks, and Jurassic World, that was written by Derek Connolly, and then Avi Arad's involvement in the X-Men films.
I'm very excited to hear your casting now.
Yeah, and so with all three of those, like director, producer, and scriptwriter, there are common actors there. And I'm like, could any of these actors be Link, Zelda, Ganondorf, and more? I was able to come to that conclusion, and I've actually found out online, like, I just typed in Zelda casting, and there's actually some people who agreed with me, like some random articles that agreed with my castings on it. So yeah, that's going to be interesting when we talk about that. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to add about Derek Connolly as a script writer or Wes Ball as a director before we move on?
Wes Ball is also doing Planet of the Apes.
You're right.
The new upcoming Planet of the Apes movie.
Yes.
So I'm very curious to see how he tackles that, because he is not like a very he hasn't done much.
Yeah, he hasn't.
He's done Maze Runner, and he will be doing Planet of the Apes, and he will be doing Legend of Zelda. So outside of that, he hasn't really done that much from what we are, like, his credits aren't as much as like someone like, I don't know, like Colin Trevorrow or something, who does like other action movies and stuff.
Right,
I'm just throwing a random name out there, or like J.J. Abrams.
Right.
So I'm curious to see what, like, I'm curious to see what he does. But I will say this: he made a tweet 10 years back saying that the next big Avatar-esque movie in which they do like CGI, kind of like how they did in the Avatar movies. Like, after, basically, when he watched the Avatar movie back in 2010, he basically said they need to use this technology for a Legend of Zelda movie. He himself tweeted that 10 years back. So
Wow.
what are the chances that he's the one directing the Legend of Zelda movie now? Yeah.
Wow, that's like almost like on some conspiracy, like predicting the future type stuff. Wow, that's actually insane. He actually said that. Hey, you know what?
Coincidence.
If he says that, that must
Yeah.
mean he's a fan of Zelda. And if the director, you know, because a little side note, I watch a lot of Star Wars Theory and his opinions on the upcoming Star Wars projects, and he always says that if the director and scriptwriters are fans of Star Wars, that's what matters. And so from you telling me this, that Derek Connolly, or sorry, Wes Ball, like said something, you know, like regarding like a Zelda movie with the Avatar CGI level of technology, that gets me excited and makes me believe that Wes Ball is actually a fan of Zelda, which makes me more confident in this. Like, if he's a Zelda fan,
Yeah, I think he's a fan of Zelda.
yeah, dude, that's really reassuring. So thank you for sharing that.
Think about this as well. Think about this. Yeah, so that tweet that he made was in 2010, and that was shortly before Skyward Sword came out. So
Wow.
he didn't play Skyward Sword, but he was probably fresh off the heels of Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess was probably still fresh in his mind. So that's also something to think about as well, basing off like what he could do with the Zelda movie. But yeah, sorry to cut you off. What were you saying as well?
I was just gonna say that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because Zelda Twilight Princess definitely plays a strong role in this discussion moving forward. But before I reveal more about that, I just wanted to say that Wes Ball actually did start out his career doing a lot of CGI graphics and art for movies and mini projects. Most of these are not, according to his IMDb, most of these are not like serious movies, like they're TV shows, TV movies, or like specific videos. But he was interested in CGI graphics for a long time. So that, you know, the fact, it doesn't surprise me that he was super interested in the Avatar technology and wanting to do it for a Legend of Zelda project. So that's cool. Like, he literally is like a dream come true for him, that, you know, he's taking the helm of the Legend of Zelda, and now with his experience of, you know, CGI like in the early 2000s to the early 2010s, you know, he could definitely really give a lot of good points to CGI, especially if he's super interested and studied the Avatar movie CGI. Then I think the Zelda movie's CGI is in good hands. Yeah, so moving on to the next question here. How do you, like, let's talk about Link. Like, because I feel like before we talk about, like, the world in general, we need to figure out what Link is in this movie. So, Nishquick, how do you expect Link to be, or how do you want Link to be portrayed? This goes for whether he's going to be speaking or not, a character analysis, and how he's brought up in the story. We'll focus on the what the story of the movie is and Link's casting in the upcoming questions. But for now, take it away. What do you want Link's character and portrayal to be like?
So, in terms of just his character and his portrayal, I want him to be very stoic. I want him to be, I think he's inevitably going to have to talk in this movie, but I think they can make him talk. He just needs to be a man of a few words, and maybe even not just a few words. He can, talk. He can, say things, but he just can't be talkative. He can't be cracking jokes. He can't be very jovial. He can definitely have a sense of humor, but he just needs to have that cold, not cold. He just needs to have that reserved demeanor to him. I'm trying to think of other characters I can think of at the top of my head right now. Kind of like a Cloud Strife. You know how Cloud Strife is in Final Fantasy VII? Sort of like that, but not really. I would want him to maybe talk a little less than Cloud Strife, but still have that kind of personality and that demeanor and that kind of standoffish kind of vibe to him. But also, this will probably be talked about a little bit more when we talk about casting, but I think it would be pretty cool if they do Child Link and Adult Link, if they have some time travel in there, if they're doing Ocarina of Time story or something like that. If they have a Child Link, then I want him to act significantly different as Child Link versus his adult counterpart. So what are your thoughts of all that? Because yeah, definitely it's not going to be, well, excuse me, princess or anything, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so and the excuse me princess actually does factor into one of my casting ideas, which is, we'll get into that. But for how I want Link to be, if you know what's crazy, if he's a man of few words, and honestly, I don't really think he has to speak it's kind of hard for me to visualize this, but if he doesn't speak at all and just nods, and maybe one word, max, 2 words max, I think that's good. And I think that's all that he needs to be. We can make him talk, or they can make him talk. I'm totally okay with that as well. But I don't think he has to need a lot of dialogue or a lot of lines, and so a man of few words, like you said, is definitely a good way to approach this. When it comes to the character analysis, I kind of want to see more of an upcoming story, I kind of want to see him become Link, and I feel like he's gonna have to go through some trials and stuff like that. Maybe at the beginning of the game, like in Ocarina of Time, right, when he confronted Ganondorf in his dream, and then he would eventually do that later in the game. Link Link looked a little scared, and so with that, it would be cool to kind of see a scared Link at first, and then kind of see him transition, becoming the hero that he needs to be, so I think definitely an upcoming hero story of Link would be really cool. I don't think he needs to start as a hero right away. He kind of could, but I feel like that would take away a lot of the character development, especially if people want to watch this movie and don't really know who Link is. Yeah, that's kind of my portrayal and ideas for him. Make it more of a
I don't want him to start off the movie. I don't want him to start off the movie already being a hero. I want him to kind of grow into that role of a hero. So that's kind of going off of what you said about his role in the story.
Yeah. So question number 4, segueing our way into the next conversation. Now that we kind of have an idea of Link's portrayal, let's throw some quick casting ideas for Link, and then we'll
Oh
continue
boy,
casting.
here we go.
Well, yeah, this is it, guys. So I just kind of want to let the audience know that obviously there will be timestamps and stuff, but we will do some casting ideas for Link, and then we'll actually talk about more of the story of the movie, and then kind of as we get closer, like in the middle towards the end of the conversation, then we'll go casting choices for everybody else. But for now, since we're like talking about Link, because I feel like you know, like Nishquick, I feel like we need to like know what Link is, even as a character, to the point of who he's going to be played by, before we like talk about how he fits in the world and stuff like that. So give me a couple of yours first. Casting ideas for Link. What do you got?
Oh boy, do you want them all at once, or do you want a few at a time?
You can give me a couple. Give me a couple. Give me one or two.
Okay. So, I will start off by giving you two that you are already sort of I'll give you one that you're sort of familiar with, and another one which kind of comes out of left field. So, we already talked about one of these in one of our live streams we did on my channel, but I would really like Ansel Elgort as Link. Ansel Elgort was in Baby Driver, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And he was also in The Fault in Our Stars. That's one of his like biggest roles. But he's a very like dashing, handsome, like young guy. And I think he could really pull off that Link stoicism very, very well. And he just has the look of a hero, and he's got that kind of vibe. He can be funny, he can be cool, but I can also see him being very reserved. So I think that would be one good choice. Here is a little bit of a tougher choice, and this comes from the fact that what's the name? Wes Ball, right? Yeah, he did Maze Runner. And this may not be like the best casting for Link, but I could kind of see Dylan O'Brien playing Link. And I say Dylan O'Brien because he just has the Link look. And I think everyone says Tom Holland is Link because he's got that Link look. I think Dylan O'Brien has the look for Link perfectly. But in terms of the stoicism and the reserved side, I don't know how he can pull that off. But my out of those two, my go-to is more Ansel Elgort than Dylan O'Brien, but I think Dylan O'Brien could also pull it off. So what do you think about those two?
Those guys are both excellent, actually. I'm not too familiar with both of them, but I'm like looking up like their work and stuff, pictures, and while you were talking, and yeah, those are pretty good. I'm not in disagreement with you. Like if they're casted, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, I like both of them. I like both of their looks. Definitely can work with the Link. And this kind of goes into one of the things I wanted to discuss with you, especially looking at these two actors that you just brought up, Ansel Elgort and Dylan O'Brien. Like both of these guys are not like your like blonde hair, blue eye type of guys. These guys are more reminiscent of Link's OG look. Like from the first few games and even the cartoon, Link was more Link was more like of a brown-haired guy with brown eyes, you know, and obviously his like blonde hair and blue-eyed look came into when Ocarina of Time, and I have a lot to say about that as well. But I am totally okay with them going in this direction of like this old school version of Link.
Yeah. I also my thing is no matter like how the actor looks, I think they can always put like a blonde wig on him to make him look like a young Hylian boy and all that. But another thing is, I feel like this is my personal take on this. For this movie, I don't know if I want to see Link in the green hat. Because that's the big thing, dude. Like, if he's going to be in live action, he's going to look so goofy with that green hat. So I think if they model the story after some of the older games, but if they have more of a Breath of the Wild slash Tears of the Kingdom look, I think that would be perfect. So what do you think about that in terms
Yeah,
of appearance?
yeah. So, like I was saying, and check this out. I want the actors like natural hair color. So, for example, Dylan O'Brien and Ansel Elgort, I would want them to have their natural hair color. Like, if they're not blonde, then make them not blonde. You know, if it's more reminiscent of Link how he looked in the older games, I'm cool with that, and that's what I would prefer. I would prefer these guys to look a little bit more authentic to like a Link type of look and not so forced. Like, oh, like for example, that there's like a huge fan made picture with Tom Holland, Idris Elba, and Emma Watson,
Yeah.
and Tom Holland has like this blonde hair. I'm like, no, dude, like please don't do that.
Yeah, it
Don't.
looks unnatural.
Yeah,
for
and
there.
like even if Tom Holland is casted, which a lot of people don't want, like just please don't give him the blonde hair. Like just let Tom Holland be like his hair color, his look, because it does work. I mean, Link has looked like that before. But anyway, when it comes to the hat, you know, that's actually not something I thought about like deeply.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of like fan made stuff with Link wearing a hat, and yeah, it could look a little goofy. But I do feel like, okay, maybe it doesn't have to be like long and pointed, but I do feel like he might need some form of a hat or a helmet. You know?
It's iconic. It's iconic to the look of Link.
Yeah, like, but I get what you're saying though. Like, if it's long and pointed, like for example, the one in Twilight Princess, it was way too long. That one was way too long.
Yeah.
You know, I think the shortest one was, at least from like a 3D game, I think the shortest hat with the point was Skyward Sword, and I feel like that
Yeah,
one,
Skyward Sword or Wind Waker, maybe.
yeah, and that one, like the hat did look a little bit better, you know, and it could just be really short, or it could just be like a new type of hat. I hope it's not like Peter Pan or anything. That'd be kind of weird. But but yeah, the hat is definitely an interesting conversation. If they gave him, man, because all of these castings, I kind of did it with like him, like with this green outfit in mind. Like now, if I'm thinking like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom style, I mean, a lot of these could still work, but you know, it is still really interesting because I feel like whether he's gonna go with the green tunic or his Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom look, I feel like that also like affects like the casting decision for Link. Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of mine.
Okay.
So both of these guys were in the Maze Runner. And this is not, and I have a total of 5. And one of them unfortunately, I mean, I could see it work, but it has to be like done well. I'll give the dumb one out of the way first, but I could still see it working. Is Tom Holland, like but no blonde hair. Like that fan made picture of him with blonde hair, rip that off. Like no way.
I will say, Tom Holland, I could he's the meme casting for Link, but I could honestly see it work. The reason why I don't want Tom Holland is because he's in everything. He was Spider-Man, he was Nathan Drake, he's someone else and something else, and like he's in all these movies, and I just don't want him to be Link, you know? I want someone else to be Link.
I agree to that. I mean, he's like my last choice on this list, but the two I'll bring up, and both of them were in The Maze Runner, which was directed by Wes Ball. Thomas Brody Sangster,
Yes.
and Will Poulter. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly.
Did you say Will Poulter?
Yes.
Oh, he was one of mine as well, so we had an overlap there, so that's good. I was wondering when you said Maze Runner, would you choose Dylan O'Brien instead? Because he was also in Maze Runner, so I'm surprised. I'm actually kind of shocked you chose Will Poulter. So I'll let you. I want to hear your take on Will Poulter as well, and then I'll like tell you why I picked him. But also Thomas Brody Sangster is a very good choice. I like that as well.
Yeah, Thomas Brody Sangster, his look, like at first when I saw him, I didn't really like it, but as like I was looking through all these movies that like Wes Ball, Evie Arad, and Derek Connolly had in common, you know, I saw like more of Thomas Brody Sangster, and overall, I think he could do it. I don't think it'll go to him, but I could see it working. I do have to say Will Poulter is definitely one of my top two, and I'm glad we have that in common because, you know, like a lot of his movies, like at first I didn't really see him as Link, but then something hit me and I totally forgot about this. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
He was Adam Warlock.
Yeah.
That's the one that made me kind of be like, hey, it was not even coincidentally, I kind of forgot that he was in Maze Runner. It's more of Guardians of the Galaxy 3 that made me think like, hey, this guy could be good for Link because he's got the look for it, but he's also got kind of a gruff, more like serious face, which I think could be really well suited for Link. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, so Will Poulter, like, I mean, he, like, seeing him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, like, he kind of had a little bit of an awkward personality, and I feel like when we're thinking about Link and having him be a man of few words, you know, and also, I totally forgot to say this, but I do want Link in the movie to be, I would prefer for him to be older. I'm not opposed to your idea of a young Link and adult Link, but I do want like an adult Link and like an adult Link, you know?
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so Will Poulter can definitely do that. He kind of like his like awkwardness in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 really like kind of made it make sense because like, you know, even in like with the serious like acting, like he could still have like this awkwardness, which is really reminiscent to what Link has in the games, right? Like there's still like Link's like funny reactions to certain things that characters say and stuff like that.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. And so that kind of sold me on Will Poulter being casted for Link, but that is my number 2 choice. Do you want to hear my number 1?
Oh yeah, I'm curious.
So my number 1, and Will Poulter like is so close, but I'm gonna go with, and this has to be an adult Link, like really like adult Link, like more Twilight Princess type of feel, which is kind of what I want this movie to like kind of feel like Twilight Princess the game, not specifically the game, but like just like feel like Twilight Princess, if that makes sense. But I'm gonna go with Lucas Till, who was in the X-Men movies. I think Havoc in the X-Men movies.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, he was Havoc.
Yeah.
Oh yes, he would be perfect because I remember him as Havoc, and he had much longer hair. So like thinking about him in that kind of setting, I was like, I don't know. But I'm seeing a picture of him right now with shorter hair, and wow, this guy looks exactly like he could be Link. He looks exactly like he could. Let me see some of his other credits because I think I've seen him in some other movies.
Yeah, he was
X-Men
he was also in the Monster Trucks movie that we kind of brought up earlier.
Yes, I remember him in Monster Trucks. He was also in Hannah Montana the movie. I'll be honest, I remember him in that. I remember him in Monster Trucks. I remember him in the X-Men movies. I think that's a fantastic cast for Link. I don't have anything else really to say. Yeah, he's a tall guy at 5'10". He's a little on the older side, but like I think like when it comes to movie castings nowadays, they always like cast older people for younger roles.
Yeah,
so I don't think that's an issue.
That's always how it's been. Like a lot of like high school shows and high school movies, like these people are like they could be 25 and older, you know?
Yeah, so, you know, the original Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, they were high schoolers in that movie, in the first movie, and they were like our age.
Yeah.
And the actors are like our age in like their 20s.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not too uncommon, but that's why I said for Lucas Till, that's why I said like an adult Link, like adult Link, you know, for him to play
Oh
that.
yeah.
I think he would do it super well. He's been in a lot of action movies. So he's practiced choreography with fighting and stuff like that. I mean, with the sword is different than using guns in your fists, like in most
Yeah.
action movies. In most action movies, it's guns and fists. But you know, with the sword, I mean, he could definitely learn that. You know, and like I said, a lot of experience with the athleticism behind, like, you know, playing like a superhero pretty much. You know, so I mean, yeah, he's definitely
Also,
got it.
just out of curiosity, who is our oldest, like, canonically, who is the oldest playable Link? Do you think it's Tears of the Kingdom Link? I would assume so.
Okay, well, there is a theory that the old man that you could like fight
Oh yeah,
in a Link
I
Between
meant
Worlds.
like the one that you play as, like
Right.
the links that we play as. Out of all of those, who do you think is the oldest?
I
Because yeah, Gramps is the oldest, and I think even older than him would be Hero Shade.
Right. Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I would definitely have to go with either, like, okay, because Breath of the Wild, Zelda was 17, Link and Zelda are implied to be the same age. So in Breath of the Wild, Link is 17. In the debug code, and this is really interesting for Ocarina of Time, the debug code, like the debug ROM, like says that when Link is a child, he's 10, but when he's an adult, he's 17, which is kind of weird because it's like canonically in the game, it's a 5-year gap, not a 7-year. Oh wait, no, it is 7 years.
No, it's 7 years. It is
Yeah,
7 years.
Oh, what am I talking about? Yeah, it is 7 years.
Yeah, I think Raru says you've been asleep for 7 years. Or
Yeah, it's 7. Yeah, you're right.
I would assume that it's Tears of the Kingdom Link, with him being in his like early to mid 20s.
I personally think it's Twilight Princess. Link.
Okay.
I personally think it is, just because of like, I feel like he has like his life like established. Like I feel like he's not like training to be a knight, because like in Breath of the Wild he was training to be a knight, and obviously, you know, the time difference between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is kind of long. But I feel like Link in Twilight Princess, like he gives me the vibes that he's like 20 to 26 at the oldest.
Yeah.
You know, so, but in Tears of the Kingdom, like 17 plus 6, that's 23, because, I mean, in my opinion, I think the time between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is the time in real life between the games, which is like 6 years. So I think like he would be 23, but I just think that, Twilight Princess Link just looks a little older than Tears of the Kingdom Link.
Yeah.
But I mean, or it's close, but yeah. Anyway, any other castings?
My final casting is a quick one. I don't have much to say on this. I'll say my number one choice is Ansel Elgort out of the 4 that I have. And another one I just wanted to throw in there is Timothée Chalamet, because like everyone is saying like he's a potential choice, like number 2 next to Tom Holland, because Timothée Chalamet is just a very up and coming actor. He's the main character in the new Dune movie. He was in Lady Bird. He was in a bunch of other like movies, and he's a very big up and coming actor right now. Let me go on his IMDb and check him out. But
I'm looking right now. Yeah, it's pretty good. And you picked a lot of like younger looking guys. Like I think some of the guys I picked are like, especially Will Poulter and Lucas Till, might be like on the more like adult side of things. But yeah, I do have one last casting choice left for Link. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Not about Link. I will just say once again, what's his name? Ansel Elgort is my top choice for Link.
And that is a great choice. I do have to say, if they pick him, I'm all for it. So to kind of say my last, and I'm really interested to see your reaction, but one of the discussion, I think it was the Game Explained discussion, they were saying that imagine if they picked a no-name for Link.
Yeah.
So like a really, really low-key actor that's not up and rising, like the guys that we have mentioned already. Really, really not that famous. And what I thought about was, I'm not saying that I want him to be Link, but Hayden Christensen, when he was young, his younger roles, he was in the Goosebumps TV show, and
Yeah.
then he got like, and a lot of like actors when they're kids, like they don't, it doesn't really most of the time translate into them continuing to be an actor when they're an adult, because
Yes.
the kid
Yeah.
to adult look is interesting. But like Hayden Christensen, I want to see something with, what if they took a full risk and like literally this would be the beginning of this actor's career as a famous actor. He's been a super small side character in huge movies, but he's never had like his big main
Mm-hmm.
role. And if Nintendo and Sony were to take a risk and start this guy's career, what do you think about Ty Simpkins? Do you even know who he is?
How do you spell that? T A
It's just Ty Simpkins. So I'll
Tyson.
tell you what he's most known for.
Oh,
He's
interesting.
most known for the playing the kid in the Conjuring movies, which are like
Okay.
the scary movies, and he also played the kid from
Oh,
Iron Man 3.
he was the kid in Iron Man.
Yes,
Yes. Oh, I
yes, yeah.
remember. Yes, I remember him. Yes.
Yeah, so
You know
and
what?
he was in Iron Man's well, I mean spoilers for Endgame, but
Yeah, he
whatever.
was
He
there.
was at the funeral, so
He was
yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was there.
so
I remember.
I mean like if they're going to go like as young as possible and like start like an actor's career, like pick someone like fully out of left field and like start his career as an actor, I would go with him. Ty Simpkins as a risky young Link.
Yeah, you know something about it? Like I'm looking at his picture right now, and he 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 looks good. He looks like a good strapping young actor, but he's got that Link vibe to him. He's got that kind of like dorky Link vibe to him as well. I think he could pull it off. I think he could. He's also very young. He's like 22, so I think he could definitely probably pull it off.
Yeah, I think he could as well. I would love to see that if that was the case. But yeah, so moving on to our next question. Now that we kind of have like an idea of what Link is like supposed to be, like with his personality and the actor, like how do we put him in this world and what is the tone? Like, I mean, we kind of touched upon this, but is this an origin story? What is the story here? Is this a mix of multiple games, one game, or a completely original story that's separate from the games? Go. What do you think?
Um, I think what they'll do is I think they'll make an original story with some original maybe characters, some original settings and scenarios, but they will have a lot of references to the older games, or maybe not older games, but other games in the series. There might be time travel akin to Ocarina of Time. There might be um like maybe some enemies come from this like rift and they come from the Twilight Realm. And maybe like there are some like companions you meet along the way who turn out to be the Minish people, who are like these tiny people helping you with your journey. Maybe to get to like this far away like location, you have to cross the Great Sea. So there might be some like things like tossed in here and there to kind of bring in more Zelda references, but overall I think it's not going to be like everything Zelda in one movie. No. I think some of it is going to I think most of it would be original, but it's going to have references to other games in the series. Kind of like what the Mario movie did. Basically what the Mario movie did. That's what I think the Zelda movie's going to do.
I think, and yeah, I like that. I like an original story with references. Like for me, it's pretty much that, but I do want a little bit Twilight, and I said this already, but a little bit of Twilight Princess emphasis. Like maybe Twilight Princess can be like the blueprint or like the skeleton, but it's not exactly a one-to-one story that was Twilight Princess. But I think especially for this movie and this medium being live action, I feel like you got to go with like visually and like story wise the like darkest and most realistic thing that Zelda has ever gotten to, which is Twilight Princess. And so especially when I think about like how all the characters in Twilight Princess, I think out of like all the supporting characters in a Zelda game, I think the characters from Twilight Princess would best like fit into a Twilight Princess like world that is an original story. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that. What do you think? Anything else you want to add?
I hope they don't cram too much into this movie. You know, like if they do the Mario movie approach, I just hope they don't cram too much in. But I also don't know if I want them to go into like one dedicated story. Like I don't know if they would do just Ocarina of Time or just Twilight Princess. But one thing that I do think they will do, and I think you mentioned this before in our other chats, is I do definitely think that they're going to lend in to a lot of the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom appeal, because that is where most of the audience coming to see these movies, they will have, most of the audience members will have played those games.
You are
so
correct.
They want to appeal to those like fans and all that. So that's one thing I have just kind of accepted and realized. Like no matter what Zelda stories they tell, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is going to be in there somewhere.
Absolutely. I mean, in defense of Twilight Princess, it is the 3rd best-selling Zelda game behind Breath of the Wild, or behind Tears of the Kingdom. Sorry, Breath of the Wild's number 1, Tears of the Kingdom's number 2, and Twilight Princess is number 3. So yeah, I mean, I just think for a movie, man, I mean, okay, maybe like Twilight Princess is kind of like maybe like a portion of the blueprint, but you do have like a lot of elements from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that the audience who played those games will recognize and feel comfortable with. But I think the best way to do it is to have Link in this world that is quite similar to Twilight Princess, but definitely still have some certain like lore and mysteries and references that are along the lines of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, with still providing an original story.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Why specifically Twilight Princess? Why specifically do you say Twilight Princess? Is it because of the kind of a realism aspect that Twilight Princess has?
Yeah.
Or the story emphasis that it has?
Yeah, and the tech demo, which the tech demo was based off of Twilight Princess. So, I mean, that's like the most realistic we got. And I just kind of feel like, especially for a movie that's being handled by, you know, Sony, and a live action movie, like, okay, it can't be like cartoony. It's got to have like elements of like Zelda's darkness in it.
Yeah.
And I feel like the best way to pull inspiration from like creating a script and creating the movie idea is from primarily Twilight Princess, but you definitely do want to have like creative freedom with original story and elements from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that would make the audience resonate as new Zelda fans. So that's kind of... I just
hope they don't lose the essence of Zelda's whimsicality, you know?
Right.
With lending... I mean, of course, Twilight Princess is still whimsical in its own way.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but I just hope with them lending more into that realism, I hope, again, like I said in the beginning of this like discussion, I hope they don't lose that whimsicality aspect to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, that you can fit some of the little silly stuff in there, but overall, like the mature tone is kind of what I'm wanting here, which does kind of segue into our next question. How is Nintendo and Sony going to fit this in 2 hours or less, or will it be longer? And what's like, you know, we've discussed like the mature tone. Like, so is this PG, PG-13? Obviously not R. There's no way it's going to be R. That'd be insane. But like PG, PG-13, 2 hours or less. What are you thinking about that type of stuff?
So, in terms of the PG-13 stuff, here's what I'll say. I think if it is PG, it will be a more Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword style movie. If they go into PG-13, then it's gonna have more of that Twilight Princess stuff, more of the dark, gritty realism, maybe some Majora's Mask style, like kind of horror aspects, maybe. But the farthest they'll go is PG-13. And I think if they're doing PG-13, then it'll have a lot of Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, maybe like Ocarina of Time, Shadow Temple stuff, a lot of that. But yeah, I, in terms of length, I think you can take it away on that answer, because I that's another thing that just kind of worries me as well. So what do you think about the length and it potentially being like a 2.5 hour long movie, or even shorter or longer, or however that is?
Right. So first of all, let's get the easy part out of the way. I want this to be PG-13. If it's PG, I will be slightly disappointed. If you're gonna do PG, then you should have done animation. I think if you're gonna do live action with Zelda, and you want it to be good, and like, I mean, obviously it probably will be a little cheesy, but if you want it to still like stand on its own legs and be like a serious, like, good movie, or at least like attempting to do that, it has to be PG-13.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think they kind of have to go PG-13 for this.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's not like Nintendo is always like, oh, you want to appeal to the largest audience. That's why we don't want to make M-rated games. That's why we want our games to be rated E, and maybe sometimes do a T-rated game. But no, I think for this one they should go for PG-13, because there's going to be a lot of like older Zelda fans coming in, and PG-13 means that like what is it, like you have to be 13 with a parent to like go watch the movie or something like that.
If you're under 13, you have to go in with a parent.
Yeah, that.
Yeah,
so yeah, so it's it'll lend to them being able to do a lot more cooler stuff with this, I think.
Yeah, like I said, dude, if they officially committed to doing live action, animation is out the window. If they did animation, PG would have been that would have been ideal. But if they're gonna do live action, this has got to be PG-13. If it's PG, it's literally just gonna be like a comedic, like a live action PG is just gonna be like some sort of comedic comedy, fun time, super whimsical. I mean, a little bit of whimsical is okay, because that's what has always been in Zelda. But if it's like live action PG, then it's just all going to be whimsical. Like, you can't go too violent. And personally, I don't want to see that. As like as a mature older Zelda fan, I want to see some crazy stuff. I want to see like a fight with a sword and people get wrecked, and that's done in PG-13. Also, Arad, with all of his superhero movies, from what I believe, I think Into the Spider-Verse, at least the first one was PG, but you look at all the Spider-Man movies, they're all PG-13.
They're all PG-13, you're right.
Yeah. So, and those are like the most memorable of Avi Arad's work, right? Like the biggest things that stand out to us when we think of Avi Arad and Sony, leading a movie project is the Spider-Man movies. And so with all of them, like, or at least more than 90% of them being PG-13, it would just make no sense to go into PG here. And I think that would limit them and make this even harder and disappointing if they went PG. But is there anything else you want to say?
I want to say something real quick about the PG-13 thing. When I'm thinking of a Zelda movie, there are two movies in mind right now that I think that they could kind of base the tone and vibe and style off of. And one of them is not the Lord of the Rings series. Neither of them are the Lord of the Rings series. So the two movies are, one is The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride it's actually, I just looked it up. It is a PG movie, but if they kind of have that vibe of The Princess Bride, but have a little more of like epicness to it, I think they could really pull off a good Zelda movie. But another more recent movie from this year is the Dungeons and Dragons movie. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. What was it? Honor Among Thieves. Yes. So that movie is like basically kind of what I see. Like it was actually a very good movie. I didn't think it would be that good, but it was a movie that kind of has that whimsicality to it, that fantasy whimsicality to it, and I really, really appreciated that, and I loved it. So if they do a Zelda movie, I think that it would be sort of like those two movies, but I will say, Dungeons and Dragons is a PG-13 movie, which added more to like some funny humor and some like silly jokes that they could make there as well. But yeah, what do you think of those?
One thing that I just looked up right now, because I knew this for sure, PG-13, I think, like, was created a lot later, like,
Yeah.
especially, like, when we're thinking Princess Bride 1987,
Yes, yeah, it was old, yeah.
yeah, so I don't, like, I just looked it up. The first PG-13 rating was July 1st, 1984, with the release of Red Dawn. But the thing is that
Mm,
a lot of movies, even like it took a while for that transition to make the difference between PG and PG-13. Like, for example, Back to the Future is rated PG, and that movie, I think it's PG-13. I mean,
yeah.
it's cool. I mean, I watched it definitely before I was 10, but I mean, it's just I see that movie, especially with like the cursing and stuff. I see it as
Yes, I
PG-13.
think so as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
It's kind of like older video games. Like
yeah.
an example I like to use personally is I'll look into this later, but the game Xenogears, Xenogears, I don't think it was rated M back in the day. But if Xenogears was released today, it would be 100% a rated M game because like I don't even know what they were thinking not reading that game rated M, but they didn't. But yeah, so it is a similar thing in video games as well.
Yeah, also Paper Mario 64. This is really random, but Paper Mario 64, when it was brought to the Nintendo Switch Online, it's rated T. Like, what the heck? You know?
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
super weird. And the truth is because things have like I mean this is like a whole like, like branch. We should probably not go too far into this, but like I feel like the opinion on like what makes something for kids and not for kids has kind of changed throughout the years. But anyway, that's just what I wanted to say
yeah,
about that. But going back to what you said about, like as movies themselves, Princess Bride and Dungeons and Dragons, I did not see Dungeons and Dragons, but I did hear a lot about it, and just by like seeing the trailers, like I have a good understanding of what it could be. And yeah, it's like comedic, but there's like a story, and it could be. And I think you said this in your video yesterday. You said that like following
yeah,
that type of formula could be a good way to approach creating a Zelda
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
And
And I think it'll be a
yeah,
much better movie than Dungeons and Dragons. Like Dungeons and Dragons wasn't a bad movie, but it's like a movie you're not going to remember in another like 10, 20 years. It's not like super memorable. It's just a fun like popcorn flick. A Zelda movie, if they like emulate some of the kind of tone of that movie with a good story, with good acting, with good characters, then they'll blow it out of the park. And the most important thing about that is they'll retain what makes Zelda Zelda while still being live action and not like deviating into some like kind of style that Zelda is not, you know?
I mean, yeah, I think Princess Bride and I saw in the Game Explained discussion too. They also mentioned Princess Bride. I think that's also a good
Mm-hmm.
blueprint, or just like a good inspiration starting point. So yeah, you kind of nailed that when it comes to like similar movies where you could draw inspiration and create something that balances like a pretty serious story with a lot of whimsical charm that the Zelda series has always had.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, now we kind of really focused a lot on this. I kind of asked this originally, but the length, 2 hours or less. Let's hop back to that. For the Mario movie, under 2 hours. I think the Mario movie is under an hour and a half. I think.
Yeah, Mario movie was a very short movie.
Yeah.
But that's
So
also because it was a kids movie. It needed to be a little shorter because
exactly.
kids don't have like a very long attention span as well.
Yeah, and that was my one gripe actually with the Super Mario Brothers movie is I saw it 2 or 3 times, and I just thought it was too short. Like, and a lot of people agree with me on this. Like, there could have been more character development with certain characters. Like Mario and Donkey Kong could have had like a little bit more of a bond and like character development. Luigi, there was just like he was literally in a cage for like 90% of the movie.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I mean, like, I just kind of thought that my only thing with the Mario movie is that it was too short. But then again, I'm still grateful for what it is and the fact that it is in the way that it is. Like, I still love it. But I just wish it was just a teeny bit longer. And so when we're talking about Zelda, that has like, this is serious. We got lore, we got stories, we got characters, we have history, ancient history of this ancient tribe with this ancient technology, you know, like the last 4 games have talked about, last 4 or 5 games, you know, like that's obviously what they're gonna probably like allude to. And if you're gonna do that and you're gonna try to have Link go through like at least 3 dungeons before facing Ganondorf or the villain at the end, this thing has got to be 2 hours at least.
Oh yeah,
exactly,
definitely
2 hours. Yeah, I can't.
And if it's gonna be live action, they're gonna have a bigger budget for it. They're gonna make it like a big grandiose movie. So at least 2 hours, if not more or less.
Yeah, I think it's got to be at least 2 hours. My personal, like, my dream, my want. I mean, I'd watch a 5-hour Zelda movie. I don't even care. You know, but I mean, if I'm thinking about the audience and everything else and the success of the movie, then I think that the best way to do it is 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes, probably right there is a good spot.
That's still like edging on the longer side for a movie, but I think that could be good if they want to flesh out the world a little bit more, if they want to have some more character development, if they want to introduce some new characters in there, and like what I said, if they want to have some more of those like Zelda game references,
right?
Then they could expand the movie a little bit more with that. And I think one thing is if they want to add the dungeons in there, I don't know how they're going to do the dungeons. I don't know how the heck they're going to do that. If they're going to add more than 1 or 2 or 3 dungeons in there, it's going to be a longer movie.
Honestly, the way that I thought about the dungeons is you can do like Link goes through the first one quickly, and then he like fights a boss, and then he like grows, and then the next like 2 dungeons, it's kind of like a montage, or it's like a lot quicker. But if it's a montage, that definitely makes it more whimsical, like more silly. If there's like music in the background and there's like a montage, kind of like with Mario training in the Super Mario Brothers movie when he was training with Peach and he had to go through like that obstacle course many times. You know, yeah. If the Zelda movie is gonna have more of a whimsical feel, that's kind of like Spider-Man or Guardians of the Galaxy like type of humor, then they could definitely have Link go through like maybe 2 or 3 dungeons as like a montage, you know, and I think that would, or somehow involve some other time skip, maybe, I don't know, maybe with clever editing they could just, you know, make it happen. But definitely for sure they can't show Link going through every single dungeon. I think going through one and then like time skipping a couple of them and then going through the last one, and then he gets wrecked, and then that's like the climax, and then he has to go fight Ganondorf. So like kind of a
Yeah.
total of 4, I would say. First one we see relatively quickly. The middle 2 are like quicker with montage or time skips, and then the fourth one we kind of see more of, and then we see Link kind of like get that setback, right? Because in a lot of these movies, like towards the end or before the final battle, the hero gets a setback, and then with
Hmm.
that setback, he still has to, or he or she still has to perform like all the way to the end. So I think that would be a good way to structure it in like a 2 hour and 20 minute type of thing. But yeah, is there anything more you wanted to say on that?
No, I think that's about it for the length of the movie.
Cool. So going on to the next question here. Now we dip back into the funner stuff
Yeah.
here. Let's get into characters and more. So before we talk about how we're going to cast these characters, and maybe we might as well just start saying it in this section. But what characters do you want to see, at least before we start talking about casting them? What characters do you want to see, like, obviously, other than Zelda or Ganondorf? And I have something to say about Ganondorf that's going to interest you, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Obviously, yeah, Zelda Ganondorf definitely. It also depends on what, like, who they're bringing back from the other games. I think two definite characters who are reoccurring characters that they should bring in the Zelda movie are Beetle and Tingle, because they are reoccurring characters in many of the Zelda games. If they want to bring back supporting characters, like smaller characters, maybe Malin and Talon, maybe someone like the Happy Mask Salesman, maybe Kepora Gibora the Owl, or someone like who else? If you're thinking Breath of the Wild, then maybe Cass the Rito, or which other like supporting characters in the Zelda series? Maybe if you want to like introduce Link's family into the movie, you have his grandma, you have his sister. Those are just some characters. And then of course companions. Maybe you have a fairy like Navi or Tattle, or you have someone like Ezlo, or you have someone like Fi. Oh my god, if Fi is in the movie, that would be actually like interesting, but it would also be kind of comedic. I think they would play it off for comedy.
Yeah, I agree. Fi
Yeah,
would. I do not have Fi on my list, but
yeah,
yeah, that would be pretty interesting. Anybody
yeah.
else?
Those are just the ones that come to my mind immediately. So, who do you think they should add in this movie? Just some
Well,
choices.
so I think like especially for the story, and you know we talked about this before I even started recording the discussion. I gave you like a little hint, but first of all, and this kind of goes back into the length a little bit. If they're gonna make more than one movie out of this, like there's gonna be sequels, then there's no need to throw in all the races at once. Especially if this movie is gonna be like on like in the 2 hour side of things and not like
Yeah.
2 hour 20 minute plus. They don't need to include all the races that we know throughout Hyrule. And I am very concerned about how they're going to do Gorons. Like all the other
Mm.
characters, and I actually have like a list here that I took like a lot of notes on how like they could all work in a movie. But Gorons, like oh my gosh, I just feel like you want to see if this movie is successful first, and then put Gorons in a sequel. Like I
Why
would,
specifically Gorons though?
it's just so. I feel like it's just so hard. Like not. I mean, like with CG, I feel like they'll look goofy, and then
Yeah.
like if you try to do like this Star Wars like makeup and like prop like type of costume, like I feel like that's gonna look silly as well. Like it's just. I don't know how they're gonna do Gorons. Do you have any ideas on how they would do Gorons? Because I'm
I think a
lost.
lot of I think Gorons, Zora, maybe even the Rito will all be either CGI or motion capture, I think.
Yeah, yeah, definitely for sure.
Yeah.
CGI and motion
Later,
capture.
I found this on Twitter. I will send you some pictures of this artist who has been doing like they've been making some like mock-ups on like Blender or Maya of how like realistic Zora would look like. So I can send you that later.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Some images of
Please,
them.
please, please, yeah. Send that later. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I actually do have an idea on how Zora could look. Because I feel like with Zora, it's way easier than Goron. Because Zora and Rito, and if we're thinking Wind Waker Rito, like it could be humanoid, and then with like bird characters, we have seen so many times like talking bird characters. So like there's a lot of inspiration to pull from. Like if they're gonna do like the full bird version of a Rito from like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you have a lot of like previous movies that have done that already with CGI. So I'm not too worried about Rito and Zora, and then Gerudo are just people
Oh,
from
I
the
would
desert.
love to see the Gerudo in
Yeah.
this.
So I mean, I'm not worried Gerudo at all. I think they're for sure going to be in this. But it's just Gorons, man. I just can't. I don't even. I just
Yeah.
can't. And it's okay. Like if the Gorons are not in this movie at all. Maybe if there's like a Telma's bar and we see like a
Mhm.
Goron in the bar by himself, like I'm good with that. Just one Goron in the bar, and maybe he tells Link, like gives him some advice where to go. But
Yeah.
literally, if they just do that, I'm good. Like I don't need to see any other Gorons because I just think it's just way too crazy.
Yeah.
But a lot of characters, and I'll get into like a lot of specific characters, and I do have casting options from them, which is pretty much what we'll get
Mhm.
into. So obviously I have Zelda and Ganondorf, but I do have an interesting twist.
Yeah.
What if they saved Ganon, like Breath of the Wild, they saved Ganondorf for the sequel, and we got like
Oh,
an
what if they have Aghanim in the first one?
yes, an OG
Uh,
villain, like an original villain, or like a Ganondorf like right hand man type of villain.
okay.
Like Girahim, Zant, Aghanim, like a
Oh
lot
my
of that.
god,
And
dude,
I
what
have,
if they do Zant? Oh man.
yeah,
Like Zant in live action would be insane, but I think that really depends on how traditional they want to go with this. If they want to go super traditional, if they want to go super OG, then they gotta do Aghanim. I would love to. Aghanim would be a very, very good villain to do in live action, I think. Better than Zant, better than Girahim. I think it would be a very safe bet to do Aghanim. And like with the whole Dungeons and Dragons idea I have in my mind of how this movie might go, Aghanim would be a perfect fit for that. And it would be a nice fit, like setup for Ganondorf. But I think for just getting the general public in the theaters, I think they should have Ganondorf in the movie and heavily marketed in the movie. But I think in the beginning of the movie, if they want to have maybe both Aghanim and Ganondorf, just have Aghanim slowly in the beginning, but immediately he's thwarted out, you realize he's Ganondorf like earlier on in the movie. I think that would also be like a valid thing to have as well. But also that might make the movie too bloated, or I don't know.
yeah, exactly. Especially if we're thinking about the time limit, like we discussed before. Like,
Exactly.
I would be fully okay with Ganondorf, like they do like a Thanos, like where Ganondorf is literally teased in the after credit scene, like, and he'll even
Credit.
have a line, like he'll say something and have a line, and then cut, like a end
Triforce
credits.
of power is mine or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I'd be okay with that, but like you said, it is very important that if Ganondorf's a part of the marketing, that would definitely help the success of this movie. So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, either way,
Like I love the idea. I definitely do, but it's something us Zelda fans would love. It's kind of like imagine if the Mario movie, the villains were the Koopa kids or the Koopalings, and then the next movie would have Bowser or something like that. But I think in this instance, if you have Ganondorf have that kind of alter ego, it would be kind of like a nice twist as well. So it's an interesting kind of toss up you have to have that. But also, if Ganondorf isn't the post credit scene, what would the post credit scene be? I don't think it would be Demise or something because Demise comes before. So what do you think they would try to set up for a Legend of Zelda sequel?
I mean, they could do each movie as a piece of the Triforce, kind of like the original games, where actually the first game was just
Mm.
Triforce of Wisdom and Triforce of Power, and then the second game was Triforce of Courage.
Yes.
So they could do something similar like that, maybe make like a trilogy out of it. That's actually one of the later questions. I actually want to really focus on the characters, and I want to see a reaction to a lot of my my casting choices for them.
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, but yeah, we will get into that later. But I mean, just to like answer your question, I mean, if there's no Ganondorf in the post-credits scene, and Ganondorf is also not in the movie, I think we got to see the Triforce, or we'll hear like somebody call out to Link like in a mirror or something. I mean, they just gotta set it up. Or also with Zelda, everything is cyclical. Like you can never truly defeat Ganon. I mean, now with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, a lot of people are like, "Oh, the rules of the Zelda series have changed." But I think if they're gonna go traditional for the movie, you can never. It's a cycle. You can never truly defeat Ganon. He will come back, but in response to that, there will always be like a hero and like sacred princess ready to combat against him, and good will prevail. So, I mean, they could do a lot with kind of teasing on like a future movie. But before we get into that, it was a lot of fun to talk about Ganondorf and an OG villain. And I have, oh man, my casting choices for these guys you're gonna love it. But I also want to see a King of Hyrule. I also have casting choices for a Kokiri Sage, a Rivali or Rito Sage, Mifa or Rudo, the little girls from Twilight Princess, Ilia from Twilight Princess, Impa, or
Impa.
Urbosa or Gerudo Sage, Zelda's mom or Link's mom, Link's dad, and then finally, and this one will be quick, maybe like a tribute. That would be cool if they could put in, because Robin Williams was like connected with marketing the Zelda series. And he was a huge fan of it. But if they were able to somehow give tribute to that, and
one of my friends coincidentally was saying that Zelda Williams, his daughter, should have a role in the movie.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to get into. Like, it's sad. Like, I wish Robin himself could be in this. That would be so amazing. But, I mean, if they put his daughter, Zelda Williams, who he literally named her after the series, especially like in that Ocarina of Time, like, 3D commercial with Robin Williams and Zelda Williams. Like, I saw that after he passed. And dude, that made me like emotional, like watching that. And so
I think she should. I honestly think Zelda Williams would be a nice choice to play Princess Zelda as well. So I think, whoa.
I mean, I don't even know if she's in it. Is she like an actress? Like,
I know she's in the film industry, but I don't know if she's an actress or not. I have to look into that. She
is on Google. It says that she is like an actress. Oh yeah. Okay. I mean, a lot of these movies are kind of small. I don't really think I've heard of them, but she's in an upcoming movie called Lisa Frankenstein that comes out next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. So she's
even just having her as a cameo or something would be nice.
Okay.
Someone associated to the royal family, maybe like a Sheikah or someone like that would be nice to have.
Oh, she's also, that's interesting. She voices a character in Legend of Korra.
Yes, she is, oh god, don't tell me. She's, no, she's not Sulin. Who is she in Legend of Korra? I forgot.
I have no idea. I only seen the first, the Avatar. I never saw.
Yeah, I need to look this up now because I remember she was in Legend. No, she's Kuvari. She's Kuvari in Legend of Korra. I remember now.
How interesting, dude. This is like, I did not know she was in acting and directing. Okay,
Kuvira, that's her name.
Well, she
Kuvira.
Yeah, dude, she could clearly be in this. Like, she has enough, like, credential to be in this easily. So they should for sure shoe her in. I'm a little bit on the fence about this, but what do you think about, and this is the last thing before we'll get into Zelda, Ganondorf, and the other character castings. But what do you think about like Miyamoto or Eiji Aonuma or Fujibayashi like having like a surprise cameo, like small role where they have one line? Like,
I,
do you
I
want
I
that?
don't know about I don't know about Aonuma and Fujibayashi. I don't know if they would fit well into the Zelda movie. I think Miyamoto, like I was hearing some people say, Miyamoto would be fun to have in the movie as the happy mask salesman. You know?
Oh man, that would be crazy.
Yeah. I think
Wow.
that would be a fun cameo. I think I don't I have to really think because Mario movie had some perfect cameos like Charles Martinet's two roles
Oh
like
yeah.
of Mario's dad and Jumpman. That was
Yeah, that
so
was
perfectly well
awesome.
done. I want something as cool as that in a Zelda movie. Like, and I don't know if they should put the developers in there. I think Zelda Williams is a good option, and like other people who are just fans of the Zelda series. Like, this is gonna sound really stupid because like one of my friends was telling me, he's like, hey, remember how Stone Cold Steve Austin is a huge Zelda fan? He's like one of those big wrestlers, right? He loves Breath of the Wild and he loves the Zelda series. So what if he has like a cameo role as
Oh
like
my
a
gosh.
yeah, as like one of the mountain smithies or like one of the people working like as a blacksmith in Kakariko Village or something like that. That would be funny.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I think out of all the cameos, like with like like real life people that love the Zelda series and are like a part of it, I think Zelda Williams for sure. I think Zelda Williams over, and I mean, I don't mean this in any disrespect to Aonuma or Fujibayashi. I love them. I
Yeah.
love their work, but I think Zelda Williams should probably have more of a higher priority of having a cameo in this
Yeah.
film than them.
And she would just
Yeah.
have a better presence in there versus like I think having like Aonuma in there would feel a little tacky, you know?
I mean, I would love to see it, but yeah, I
Oh
also
yeah, I would
agree.
love to see it. I
Yeah.
would love to see it, but I just don't know how someone like Aonuma or Miyamoto would fit in there. But I don't know. I want them to surprise us as well. Yeah.
Alrighty. So let's get into probably the biggest part of the discussion here. Like, so for you guys watching, if you thought this discussion was getting big, this is the biggest part of all. The castings for the rest of the characters.
Oh boy.
So, oh man, let's see. So, okay, let's go Zelda and Ganondorf first. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you my top two, like, at the top of the list
Oh
for
gosh.
Zelda and Ganondorf. So,
I will say this real quick before you say anything.
uh-huh.
I remember that when we did our live stream, that you were saying Haley Atwell, but you also said Haley Atwell for a voiced animated Zelda. I want to
Yes.
see how this is all changed.
Yes,
Pro-
that has changed. And you know what? Now that we're talking about Haley Atwell, I'll just give this to you. Might as well. As
I-
an honorable like
Yeah.
idea for her to be Zelda's voice. And I saw the live action version of Cinderella recently, where Haley Atwell was in it, and I'm like, dude, that actually could totally work. Haley Atwell as Zelda's mom or Link's mom.
Zelda's mom, yeah,
Well,
she would
yeah,
she would do amazing as Zelda's mom. I think that's
yeah,
a good casting. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, Zelda's mom, or I mean, yeah, I think Zelda's mom would be better than Link's mom, but yeah. Anyway, so my top two for Zelda and Ganondorf. Oh man. Okay, I'll give you Ganondorf first because Zelda, it's a tie.
Yeah.
For Ganondorf, I'm gonna go with Jason Momoa.
Oh God, really? Interesting.
And the reason why, because a lot of people are like, oh, this guy is like Aquaman, like he's cocky, like Fast and Furious, like what the heck, he doesn't fit in medieval fantasy at all. Well, check this out. He was in Game of Thrones. So
He was called Drogo in Game of Thrones. You're right.
so
You're right.
he has experience with being in a medieval fantasy setting. So it could work, and he has the build, and he has the look, the beard, and he I mean, he's been a protagonist like in the bigger movies that he's more well known in. like Aquaman, and the Justice League movies. But I mean, like in Fast and Furious, we saw him like a more cocky, crazy version of him, and if he could combine that with like everything that he's learned from being in a medieval fantasy setting with Game of Thrones, I think he could be a great Ganondorf, an excellent Ganondorf. Yeah. So what's your immediate reaction to that?
Um, I have always been like confused why people say, "Oh, Jason Momoa as Ganondorf, Jason Momoa," but then I realize that you just kind of reminded me of Khal Drogo, and Khal Drogo is not like Ganondorf. Khal Drogo is very vicious and visceral, but he's also kind of like he's got a soft side to him. So I am curious what they would do with with um like Jason Momoa if he were to be um in this as Ganondorf. And like I think they could pull it off, but I am always a little it's kind of like how I was fearful of The Rock as Black Adam. Because like The Rock,
Yeah.
whenever The Rock smiles, you're just like, ah, it's The Rock. Like,
Yeah.
like you can't be upset about The Rock. It's but that goes the same for Jason Momoa. If Jason Momoa smiles, then it's like all over. I can't take him seriously anymore. So like I
Really?
just I hope that if he is Ganondorf, then he like puts like everything he's got into this as Ganondorf.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we saw like, and I got two things to say to that. So you said that his character in Game of Thrones did have a soft side. Well, think about Ganondorf in Wind Waker, where his ending speech, he like before you fight him, he was like, "I coveted that land. Like I was jealous. Like it made me
Yeah.
emotional. Like I wanted it. Like all I felt was the burning wind with sand in my eyes or something like that of living in the desert, and I like coveted the beautiful lands of Hyrule where it was a nice cool air with green grass, and so that was a more soft side of Ganondorf, like the
Yeah.
most soft side of Ganondorf we have ever seen in the series by
You're
far.
right.
And so it is possible that you could like formulate some form of like a little bit of softness in again, and just like for a moment, just like I guess when it comes to his upbringing on why he is the way he is.
Mm-hmm.
But also remember that Jason Momoa has a crazy side, cocky side. So I mean, it's I just see it working. Okay, but anyway, now my top pick for Zelda, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm gonna have to go with. Oh man, it's tough. Like I have two that are my top two, and then I have like two other ones. But oh man, I'm gonna have to go
Yeah.
with. And this is gonna be interesting. What do you think about Samara Weaving as Zelda?
Wait, I need to look that. I've heard that name before. Samara.
So here's check this out,
Oh,
Nish. With
yes, yes, I remember her. She
big,
was in
she was
I
also in
forgot that.
Monster Trucks. She was also in
Oh,
that
she was
movie.
in Monster Trucks? I don't remember that.
Yeah, she was.
But
Yeah,
she was in Ready or Not. I remember
yeah.
Ready or Not.
Yeah, so
I
she's been in a lot of more like intense movies. Like the clip I
Yes.
saw of her when I was doing research on her today, I saw the opening scene of Scream 6, I think, and
Yeah.
that's a pretty intense way to get introduced to her.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, I there was a movie that she did, and it has like some sort of French title. Let me bring it up for you. Where she actually sung, and I think that's interesting. Like if Zelda could sing, I think especially when I remember Skyward Sword Zelda, I think that would be really interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because she was able to sing well, and she has like that. I feel like her look is great, and so that's like my ultimate trio right there is Lucas Till as Link, Jason Momoa as Ganondorf,
Jason Momoa.
and Samara Weaving as Zelda. That's like my three
Interesting.
trio. But before
Do
I
you
get,
have do you have a
yeah.
secondary choice for Zelda, or is that your only choice so
So
far?
so I was gonna let you go, but I could tell you my tie because it pretty much is a tie for Zelda. My second choice, and now at first you might not like it, but I want you to think about it.
Okay.
Daisy Ridley as
Oh
Zelda.
no, I don't hate it. I love that choice. I think I like that choice way more than Samara Weaving, actually.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
Daisy
glad.
Ridley was one of my four choices. I have four choices for Zelda. Daisy Ridley was one of them. So
Okay, so
you're up.
I'm glad we have that in common. Yeah, and the reason, and I just think about it like if they're gonna do something like what they did with the Mario movie, where Peach was able to fight back. So imagine a Zelda movie where Zelda fights back, and and we've seen like Hyrule Warriors, and in the original Hyrule Warriors, and especially Twilight Princess, where Zelda actually had like a sword, like a rapre. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's like a special name for a sword that starts with R. But any
Rapier.
yeah, rapier or something like that. And so I'm like, dude, with all of Daisy Ridley's like, she had a lot of practice for Star Wars. Like she had a lot of
Yes,
practice
for
with
Star Wars, yes.
swordplay and sword choreography. So if they want Zelda to like fight back and fight against, maybe she could get a couple of hits and dance, with Ganondorf a little bit, like exchange some blades there. So I mean, I think
Yeah,
that'd be really cool. And I think if they keep her like no blonde hair, like kind of like what I said with Link, like her natural hair color, so more like of a Twilight Princess type of look.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think that would work really
Have
well.
you seen images of Daisy Ridley in her role as Ophelia?
You know what? I have not
You
actually.
should look that up. Even look it up like right now. Just
Yeah, I
Google
am.
Daisy
I
Ridley
am.
Ophelia,
I
and
am.
you will literally see her as Princess Zelda. I am not joking.
Wow. I can't believe I missed that.
Yeah, that's the most like Zelda we have seen of like someone not associated with Zelda, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. That's it. That's it.
Yes, that's our Zelda, I think.
Yeah, that's it. I
And
see it
you
and
know,
yeah.
another thing I want to say about Daisy Ridley is I kind of feel sorry, I kind of feel bad for her because after Star Wars ended, like she just didn't really get many good roles in the film industry, just because I don't know why, because she's actually a really good actress. So I hope that this Zelda, like if she is Zelda in the Zelda movie, if she's the titular role of Princess Zelda, I hope it like brings her back into prominence and people start to remember her and like praise her as one of the best actresses in the industry. So yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah, so yeah, man, and that's so true. And that's kind of what sucks about playing like a big character, like because they literally like Daisy Ridley, I think before Star Wars, I don't think she was super well known. And then they literally put her on the front of like this like 40 plus year like movie franchise. She's like the main character in 3 movies in a row, like the top, like the most prestigious main lead role character. And
Yeah,
so I think that kind of, and you're right, it is sad. I think that did kind of like make things a little bit weird when it comes to her getting any future roles. But if she could redeem herself as Zelda and pick up a sword and fight as Zelda and like have like that toughness, like especially because they did that with Peach in the Mario movie, and if we see a more like stronger, mature Zelda that fights back in the Zelda movie, I think Daisy Ridley for sure could do an excellent job. Anyway,
oh yeah.
I have said a lot about my choices. I want to hear yours for Zelda and Ganondorf. So what do you
Okay,
got?
so I have four for Zelda, and I basically just have like two for Ganondorf, so not too many. I guess we can do the Ganondorf one first because Ganondorf won't be like as long since I don't have many choices for Ganondorf. Um, for Ganondorf, I think of One is Idris Elba. That is like the go-to pick that
That
most people have.
that's my number two. Honestly, it's so like I mean he's
I remember you
perfect.
were saying he's too much of a Knuckles now. Like you see him more as Knuckles
Well, now
than
I've had time to think about that though. You know, like
yeah.
it kind of like I thought about it today, like preparing, for our discussion that we're having right now. Like I literally thought about Idris Elba's Ganondorf. I'm like, you know what? He can be poetic, he can be emotional, and he's like dangerous and strong. He's a good movie villain. He's had experience in both movie villain and like good guy in a movie. Like he literally has like that range, and he could
He has
really
range,
be,
yeah.
yeah. And his
He can be funny
poeticness,
too. Like if they
yeah,
want to add some comedic energy to Ganondorf, he can do it.
yeah. So I mean, that's literally my number two. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great one. Anything else you got for Ganondorf?
Ganondorf, another one is someone said this in the live stream we were doing. They said Keith Davids, I think that was his name.
Yep,
And
I was it.
he's in some movies like The Thing, the and like he was in a lot of older 80s movies, and I think he could be like a pretty decent Ganondorf. He's similar in the veins to what's that? Idris Elba, but I think he would be a little more on the comedic side than Idris Elba's take on Ganondorf.
Yeah, he is a bit older, but I still think I would like to see him. I know his voice. Yeah, I would like to see
His
him.
voice is very iconic. He was the
Yeah,
president of the United States in Rick and Morty, if
yeah,
you
I knew it.
remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's where I know him from. Yeah, so I mean he can do it. Yeah, I would love to see him. I just want to see Ganondorf fight like full on. I want to see like the actors, like what they did for Star Wars. Like all the actors practice swordplay, practice the choreography, and then we get good fight scenes. And I don't think I've seen him do like a fight scene like that. But in your opinion, do you think he's able to pull that off?
I think he could. And another thing is these guys will have stunt doubles, so they'll be
Yeah.
doing a lot of stuff, but I think the stunt doubles are going to be pulling in a lot of the major stuff when it comes to fighting and fight choreography as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I would love to see that. You said you had one more or no?
For Ganondorf, no. Those are my two for Ganondorf. For Zelda, I have four choices. So I'll get one out of the way first. Daisy Ridley is one of them. I think she's up on my list. Maybe even like the top choice after thinking about it a lot recently. I think she would be great. Um, Emma Watson is another. That's another just like generic answer. If
Yeah, it
we're going
is.
for like an older Zelda, I think Emma Watson would do good. I think she fits the label for basically all three of the major classic Zeldas, like Ocarina of Time Zelda, Skyward Sword Zelda, Twilight Princess Zelda. I could see her fit all three of those roles.
Yeah, she was my number three choice, so that's a number one we have in common.
Yes. Saoirse Ronan is another one.
Ooh,
Saoirse Ronan has that kind of like um princess look to her. And I
I,
think she would really pull off a very unique take on Zelda.
how do you spell her
She
name?
it's Sairose, I think. That's her first name. I think that's how you spell it.
Soros. What was it?
And then her last name is Ronan.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, she's great. Yeah, I did see her on like some fan casting websites
Yeah,
earlier.
I think she would do great.
Yeah, she would do great. Definitely. Yeah, she
Yeah,
if I had a top 10, yeah, she's definitely in the top 10.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then another one, uh, is that yeah, those are three. Okay, my final one would be Jenna Coleman. Jenna Coleman was one of the companions in Doctor Who. She was Clara Oswald in Doctor Who. She's probably the oldest out of these four, but I think she could still pull it off. The reason I know Jenna Coleman is because she voiced one of my favorite characters in the Xenoblade Chronicles series as as a voice, like just a voiced role, because Xenoblade is a video game. And what's interesting is Doctor Who was like her big break, and she actually did Xenoblade before Doctor Who. So she's already like in affiliation with Nintendo, and she's been in multiple of the Xenoblade games, actually, not just one. She's been in a few of them, so she's in sort of close contact with Nintendo, and I think she could also pull off a really unique take on the Zelda character. But I think my top choice would probably have to be Daisy Ridley.
Jenna Coleman, she was also in Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yeah, I don't think she had a very big role in that, though.
Yeah,
I don't remember who she was in Captain America, though.
That's crazy. I'm actually, like, oh man, now I'm gonna watch that movie again and try to find her. Yeah, she plays a character named Connie. Oh, you know what? I think it's when Bucky shows up with two girls, and
I think she was in the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah. When Bucky shows up with two girls, and he's talking to Steve before he transforms. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She also did some other. Didn't she do Fire Emblem or no?
No, she was in Xenoblade. She was Melia Antiqua in Xenoblade.
Okay.
Her other, I think that's one of her only voiced roles. But other than that, I don't. And yeah, her biggest thing is Doctor Who. That's what she did.
Yeah, unfortunately, I never had the pleasure of seeing Doctor Who. So that's definitely on my list to check out at one point. But yeah, I'd say she I like her look, especially. I think she would do great. Yeah, wow, she's like in this other movie that Me Before You. I thought I saw that movie, man.
Emilia Clarke is in that as well, right?
Yeah.
Me Before You. Emilia Clarke would also be a decent Princess Zelda, but I don't know if I would pick her personally.
I feel like she would maybe like another character. I mean, yeah, she could. That is a good choice. Yeah. I mean, I thought about that, and now that I'm like sitting and thinking about it, yeah, it could. But I do think though Jenna Coleman is I would prefer Jenna Coleman over Emilia Clarke. Yeah. And I forgot one last one. So for Zelda. And a lot of fan websites are saying this. It's not my choice. It's actually not even what I would want her to be, but I just kind of wanted to bring this up and see what you think, because it's on a lot of fan websites, and I think people even approached her and asked her if she wanted to play Zelda, and it's Hunter Schafer. Have you ever heard?
Yeah, I think I've seen some of those castings as well. Well, when was she approached for Zelda?
Well, it's like by fans. She was approached for Zelda by fans. Like I think like a bunch of fans or like a post or Twitter or something asked her, "Would you be interested in doing Zelda?" Oh,
interesting. Yeah. Was that just recently?
I think it was a while ago.
Interesting.
I didn't read too much into that article, but I know for sure at some point, not too long ago, but. Yeah, they definitely approached her with that. And if you look her up right now, like she does look the part. Someone who looks the part, she does. So I'm okay with that, but your picks and my picks, I would prefer those more.
I think I'm sticking with my top 4. And I think Daisy Ridley has moved up to number 1. Especially, I think it would be a nice comeback story for her.
Yeah, I know that would be cool. Now I know that's like making me want her more now, because I originally had her tied with Samara Weaving. Anyway, hopping quickly back to Ganondorf. I did for the fun of it. I'm like, dude, how funny would it be? Like, what if it was? And I saw this on a fan website as well. Because I thought about this, and I thought, oh, maybe this guy wouldn't work. But then I saw, like, on an article, like, someone fan casted him. I'm like, oh, really? Hugo Weaving? So what do you think about...
Yes.
Did we talk about that on our when we
We
played 3D
talked about
World?
it. I remember
Yeah.
you said Haley Atwell, someone else said Hugo Weaving, and you were like, "Oh, it's like a Captain America reunion."
Get Chris
Yeah,
Evans as Link.
yeah, yeah. Chris Evans' Link would be
Oh my,
hilarious.
oh my gosh, man.
Yeah,
But yeah.
but
I mean,
Hugo Weaving would be good. I think Hugo
yeah,
Weaving or there was another one who I was thinking of that would be a decent Ganondorf other than him. I think Idris Elba is my go-to though. I think
yeah.
like
I'd
that
say,
is
yeah.
that
Idris
is the
Elba's.
Ganondorf choice. That is the one.
Yeah, I'd say especially in this time period, I think it's likely that it's going to be him with how his popularity and stuff like that. I think it'll go to him. I like have like such a cool idea in my mind with it being Jason Momoa, but if Idris Elba takes it, I'm equally as happy.
Yeah.
Hugo Weaving is cool too. I saw one person online, and I just wanted to bring this up to you because I will bring him up again for another casting. But what do you think about Christian Bale playing as a villain? Maybe Ganondorf or maybe Aghanim or whatever. What do you think about
I
that?
think Christian Bale would be a good Aghanim. He could be a good maybe even a good Zand. I don't know.
Wow, yeah, that'd be
I
that'd
think
be
I think Christian Bale could be Zand. I think he could pull it off, you
yeah,
know?
I think he's more creepy. Like I don't think Ganondorf is like creepy. Ganondorf is more like straight to the point, you know.
Have you
So
seen Thor Love and Thunder?
yes, I have.
Yeah, so think Gore the God Butcher, but actually more menacing and scary.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
he played Psycho, American Psycho, right? Something like that.
Oh, yes, he was American Psycho, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, yeah, he's got the crazy side to him. Even his acting as Batman, you know, it's like there could be an
Um,
evil side to that. So
yeah.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But
the Prestige, he has that kind of like calm composure in the Prestige as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he would do great in this movie. If he's in this movie in general, I'd be excited. So for an OG villain or Aghanim or Ganondorf, or sorry, Aghanim or Girahim, just Ganondorf's right hand man.
Yeah,
You know, I also thought of these guys:
yeah.
Oscar Isaac,
Okay.
Clancy Brown.
Oh, Clancy Brown would be a great Ganondorf himself, I
Yeah,
think.
I think I did actually have that in my Ganondorf list. I don't know why I didn't say it, but yeah. And then Tom Hiddleston as like a Girahim,
Oh,
Aghanim, or Zant. I think.
Tom Hiddleston would be good. Even Tom Felton. You remember Tom Felton, who was Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter? He would do good too. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
whoa, yeah, that is far from my memory.
yeah.
Oh
But
yeah,
Tom Hiddleston would be good, because he's done Loki. His Loki would is similar to how Girahim is like.
yeah, Girahim or even Zant. Like I feel like it would just be great.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
but I
would.
will say if they do Girahim, they have to do fire. They can't do one or the other. That's my thing. They
Yeah,
do one, they have to do both.
yeah, that would be. Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right, so just kind of going down the list here. For King of Hyrule, I only have two people. I have Clancy Brown again for being a
Yeah.
good guy, being the King of Hyrule. Or, of course, I have like probably the most iconic king in acting right now, Anthony Hopkins. He's played.
I had him in my mind as well. I thought
Yeah,
of like an older man. I thought Anthony Hopkins.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
like he's a king in so many movies. You know, like
yeah.
so. I mean, yeah, that would be cool. King of Hyrule. Anything else about King of Hyrule before I move on to other characters? Or are you good?
No, I think Anthony Hopkins is the best choice.
All right, I agree. So moving on to the Kokiri Sage or Colin. So now, reminiscing or kind of tying back to our casting of Link, like I actually thought that if it Tom Holland or Ty Simpkins, if neither of those guys are playing Link, I would like to see those guys play the Kokiri Sage or Colin, if you remember Colin from Twilight
Yes,
Princess.
I remember Colin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Tom Holland, like I could totally see Tom Holland kind of being like looking up to Link and being like, "Oh, I want to be like you," you know? Like I feel like that'd be so cool to see. Like even though Tom Holland would not be Link, for him to be like a younger character who wants to be Link, I feel like that would be perfect.
Yeah.
More perfect than him being Link.
Mhm.
Or Ty Simpkins. Ty Simpkins is still super young. He could still pass as like a really young kid. So if he were to do that, like a Kokiri Sage or a Colin type character, I think that would work really well as
Yeah.
well.
The Kokiri Sage, I could see that. I don't know about Colin though. Colin is like a little kid, so unless they like age up Colin for this movie, I think it could work with those characters.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he would probably have to be aged up. I mean, yeah, not that young.
Yeah.
I probably should
Yeah,
mention that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and not like a little kid.
Yeah.
And then also this one I had a little bit of fun. I mean, this one's kind of silly. My fan castings for this are a little silly, but for Rivali or the Rito Sage. And by the way, this character would be a CGI motion capture character, so we're not going to actually see the actor. We're going to only hear the voice. So I have 3. I have Jason Statham, Oscar Isaac, or Ben Affleck for the Rito, Sage, or Rivali.
That is okay. I can see definitely Oscar Isaac, but I'm gonna be honest. I don't see Jason Statham or Ben Affleck as a Rito Sage.
Yeah, I had a little bit of fun with that one.
Yeah,
But
nice.
also, I also forgot to mention this. What do you think about Oscar Isaac as like the right-hand man villain to Ganondorf?
I would prefer in a Zelda movie to see Oscar Isaac as the hero, because most of the times when he was the villain, I didn't like Oscar Isaac's villain takes.
Okay, I kind of did. I mean,
I just remember him as Apocalypse in the X-Men movie, and I didn't like that much.
yeah. There's also what is it? There was also a drama movie called Ex Machina.
Oh, that was good. Yeah,
And
he was good in that, yeah.
Oscar Isaac was kind of like a bad guy in that.
Yeah.
There was also a movie, like a movie about like the history of Spain or something like that, where Oscar Isaac was like a king, but he wasn't like a good king, you know. So that's like another reason why I wanted to bring him into that
Okay.
conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway,
Interesting.
moving on from there, this one is probably my most craziest pick of all. For Mifa, Rudo, or Azora Sage, I actually have, and I looked this up, she has the credentials, she could totally do it. Amelia Gotham herself, the voice of Mitha, actually
Yeah.
being her in a live action Zelda movie. What do you think about that?
I think that would work because like I could totally buy her coming back reprising her role as Mifa. But the thing is, like I know she does voice acting. Does she do like on-screen acting as well?
Yes.
I know she does modeling. I know she's a model as well.
Yeah, so I actually looked it up. She has been like in indie films and like she's been
Okay.
in one TV show. She's had really light behind the camera acting, really light. But if she's like going to be like a supporting character, like Mifa or something, I think she could I think that's totally possible.
Yeah.
I mean, her being a main character, yeah, that's a little bit more of a stretch due to like what like casting directors would see from like the work that she's done. But like her being a supporting character, I think is definitely in the realm of possibility, and I think she would do excellent. To literally reprise her role like as herself, kind of like what they're doing with I think they did that with, I don't know if you're into Star Wars, but I think they did that with Hera. Oh, they definitely did it with Bo-Katan.
Yes,
voice
there. Yeah,
actress.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I would love to see that. I would so love to see that. Amelia Gotham reprise her role. Like, I mean, yeah, I like looked it up. She does have some very light, but it's still substantial enough, in my opinion, to be a supporting role in a big movie. Let's see. I also had I mean, obviously, like Emma Watson is an obvious choice for Zelda, but what do you think about Emma Watson as like a Zora character? What do you think about that?
I think that could work as well. It's with these other Hyrulean races. I'm assuming it'll most probably be CGI, so it's all in the voice. But if it's the voice, then I think it could work. Any British people could really pull off a Zora voice, I think.
Yeah, my outlook on the Zora was if they were gonna be CGI. I also think it could be partial CGI, kind of like how Star Wars and Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, I think Zora could also be like. I think they could find like a costume with a little bit of CGI on it for Zora. I feel like it might not have to be fully CGI. I feel like with makeup they could pull something off.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I also, yeah, these ones are kind of for fun as well. I mean, whatever, but
Yeah.
Chloe Grace Martez or whatever her last name is, or Catherine Newton, just to play like a Zora girl, or to play like I also put like one of the little girls from Twilight Princess, so like those like younger like village girls, or
Yeah.
Ilia. You know, what do you think about that?
Um, yeah, I don't. It really depends on how they're incorporated into the story and like exact like who they're casted as. If they're like bringing in like the kids from like Twilight Princess and stuff, I would probably prefer if they were like new unknown like people we never heard of, because I think one part of this movie would be nice to see is if we get like new talent in here as well. Like if it's not all of them are like actors we know. It would be
Yeah.
nice as well.
Yeah, that would be good. I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
so okay, for specifically, and this one is kind of like a rebuttal. Cuz I heard somebody, I think it was on the Game Explained discussion, say that they wanted Florence Pugh as Zelda, and I am a big no on that one. I do not.
I personally don't see it.
Yeah, I
I
don't.
don't see that.
Yeah, I don't want that. I don't want her to be Zelda, but I think she would be a better Ilia, in my opinion, if she was to
Oh,
be in
interesting.
this.
Yeah, I think that could work as well, yeah.
Anyway, moving on, I still have a few characters left. So I thought about this, like, what if, and I'll tell you, like, what roles I want her to play as, but I feel like Karen Gilligan can somehow be involved in this project. She's like a really well-known actress, especially from Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, Nebula. Sony also led the Jumanji sequels.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yeah. He
so
was a part of that, yes.
yeah, so she was a part of that as well. So she kind of already like could like I feel like her chances of being in a project like this can increase.
Mhm.
So what are your opinions on Karen Gilligan? I have her here as Impa. I have her here as Impa.
She could be adult Malin as well.
Oh yeah, yeah, Adult
Yeah.
Malin. Another possible person for Impa or Urbosa, or the Gerudo Sage. I have Rosario Dawson. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think Rosario Dawson would be a really good Impa. I think that would work out really well.
Do you think she'd be a better Impa than Urbosa or a Gerudo Sage?
I no, I think Gerudo Sage would be better. Impa, I have to think on that. I have to think about who would fit best as Impa.
Okay. And then pretty much we talked about the rest of these. The last one I have, and this one would be pretty cool, is if they have Link's dad. Like how cool would it be? Just like the Super Mario Brothers movie, we had we saw Mario's parents and they were voiced full characters for the first time ever. What if they kind of do that here with Link's dad?
Oh, I
And
I I think I know where you're going with this.
yeah, and so for Link's dad, I have three. I'm gonna give you the first two. I want to see how you react to them, and then the last one is pretty special if it's Link's dad.
Okay, I have an idea of Link's dad as well, and it's kind of a more silly choice, but you go ahead with yours first.
So for Link's dad, I have like, and they could do some sort of crazy story thing where like maybe at the beginning Link is a little boy and he sees his dad get wrecked by Ganondorf or some other villain, and then his dad is like, "Oh Link, I will pass this to you." I don't know, maybe, whatever. But anyway, I see Link's dad. Here's the two, and I just want to see what you react first. But I have Brad Pitt or Russell Crowe as
Oh,
Link's
okay,
dad.
I think Russell Crowe would be great, actually. Brad Pitt, no, I think Brad Pitt is too like. First of all, I don't think Nintendo is at the like, I don't think Nintendo will ever get Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt would be asking for way too much. I think that he's completely out of the picture. Like Nintendo was lucky to get Jack Black for the Mario movie. I'll say that. I don't know if they can get like Oscar award winning Brad Pitt, but Brad Pitt like I don't know if he has that like a mentor dad vibe to him.
Well, he
I
could
think,
only have like a very, short type of role, but I don't
yeah,
know.
I think Russell Crowe would be perfect in that role, and I think he would really like, you know how like Link's uncle is like in A Link to the
Yeah,
Past.
yeah, yeah.
I think it would be that kind of like
Oh
role
yeah.
for
Oh yeah,
him.
I see that for sure. And my last one, well, before I say this, what did you have in mind for Link's dad? Because you said you had something in mind.
Mine is more of a joke than anything because I was just gonna say Reggie Fils-Aimé.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Reggie Fils-Aimé because he like there was a Zelda Nintendo account or like a Zelda Twitter account, sorry, that was posting like a tweet and it was like who would play Link in the live action Legend of
Yeah, yeah,
Zelda.
I saw
Oh no,
that.
sorry. No, it wasn't that. No, sorry. That Zelda account posted a picture of Reggie Fils-Aimé with the Master Sword and they're like, "Who is this? Wrong answers only." And Reggie Fils-Aimé responded saying it's the actor who would play Link in the Legend of Zelda movie or something.
Yeah, I did actually see that right before our discussion. That was pretty funny. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be really
Reggie
crazy.
Fils-Aimé is Link's dad.
Or if he makes a guest appearance, I'm cool with that too.
Yeah.
But what do you feel about this? So I know a lot of guys, and I'll give a little story to this. A lot of Zelda YouTubers have made videos on this about where Link got his modern look from, especially Ocarina of Time. And I think one of the developers, I
Oh,
think,
yeah,
yeah,
Leonardo DiCaprio, right?
yep, yep. One of the developers was making Link, and his wife is like, "Oh, you should make him more attractive." And the developer is like, "Oh, who should I
Yes.
base him off as?" And Leonardo was like, his career was
Yep.
rolling like in the late '90s, and it was blowing up. And so what
Oh,
if?
yes.
So I mean, if you're already telling me that they can't get Brad Pitt, I'm assuming you're probably standing in the same place about they can't get Leonardo DiCaprio either to be Link's
Yeah, I'm
dad.
thinking the same thing, but I think they would pull some strings just for Leonardo. That would be, I think he fits that role so much better than Brad Pitt. That's one thing. But I think just like from the thematic standpoint, I think it would be really awesome if they got Leonardo DiCaprio in there.
Yeah, that would be awesome, dude. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
in just some kind of cameo, that would be nice. Be nice.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Alrighty, man. Well, that is all of the extra characters and what's it called? Fan casting I had for each one of them. Before we move on to the last couple questions, is there anything else when it comes to the characters and casting that you wanted to say?
Nothing else in particular. Overall, I just want to say I am excited for this movie. I am very happy that my favorite series, The Legend of Zelda, is getting a live action movie. I'm just nervous because I am thinking of all the ways that it could go wrong,
Yeah, I'm with you there.
especially with
Yeah.
it being a live action movie. Like I've said multiple times in this podcast, I would prefer if it was animation. I would prefer if it was not live action. And the thing is, like, I'll reiterate this again. Zelda is whimsical. Zelda is fantastical. Zelda is not gritty and rooted in realism. And if they make a movie like super dark, gritty, rooted in realism, to me, it won't feel like Zelda. It'll feel like someone else trying to imitate Zelda. one thing I realized is a lot of people who have been talking about this movie who don't play Zelda as much as people like we have, sorry. They are saying, oh, like this live action stuff is good. Like they can make it like Lord of the Rings. They can make Ganondorf like Sauron. They can make this guy like this and this guy like that, and like Link like Frodo or Link like Aragorn or something. First of all, like a lot of the characters don't match, especially Ganondorf and Sauron. If you want Ganondorf to be like Sauron, you're gonna get Calamity Ganon, basically. That's
Yeah.
basically what that's what Sauron is. He's like Calamity Ganon. But in this movie, we need Ganondorf. We need the human villain. We need Link. We need Zelda. We need those characters. We need that like adventure. Like Zelda is all about adventure, and they will have that adventure in here. But there needs to be that kind of balance between like epic adventure as well as like whimsical fantasy elements as well. So that's my 2 cents. That's my biggest concern with this Zelda movie. But other than that, I'm still processing the fact that a Legend of Zelda live action movie was just announced and it's going to happen, and it's gonna be good. I just hope Avi Arad doesn't screw it up with creative differences, but
Yeah.
I don't think he will because Miyamoto's been working with him for quite some time now. So we'll see.
And Nintendo has the power in this, just like how they had the power with, over Universal in the development of the Mario movie.
Yeah.
So I think Nintendo. I think before Nintendo approached Avi Arad, I think they definitely did research on who he was and what they want. And then they presented it to him, and they're like, look, dude, this is how it's going to be. We'll allow some room for creative direction, but we need it to be like this. And this is what we want. And so I trust them. I trust Nintendo, and I know they're the type of people where they don't want to rush stuff for the money. They would rather, dude, the Mario movie was delayed twice. The Mario movie...
Oh, yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was delayed twice. Like, they will not rush this thing. They want it to be good, and that is their motto. Waiting almost over 6 years for Tears of the Kingdom, all this other stuff. Like, Nintendo would rather wait than rush. And sometimes it sucks, but at the end of the day,
it's all worth it.
They make a pretty darn good product with that mentality. And
oh yeah, 100%.
And so I trust them. Anyway, that's kind of a perfect segue into our next conversations here. With this movie in mind, and the future of Nintendo, because it's crazy how Nintendo, people thought there was going to be a Nintendo cinematic universe where we were going to have everything was going to be under Universal, the Zelda movie was going to be under Universal, and maybe they were going to make a Smash Bros movie. But now this is pretty messy if they, because you went from Universal and animated Mario with Illumination to Sony Pictures Entertainment with Avi Arad in live action. There will be no crossover.
There will be no crossover, and the thing that also has me a little worried is I haven't heard anyone else talk about this. Super Nintendo World is a Universal Studios park.
Yep.
That is not associated with Sony Pictures whatsoever. So is Hyrule Kingdom not gonna be in Super Nintendo World? If so, then I'm gonna say it right here, right now. That straight up kinda sucks.
Yeah.
In my opinion. That kinda sucks to me.
Right, because
I was waiting, I will go to Super Nintendo World, I'll enjoy the Mario stuff, but my thing is I was waiting for Hyrule Kingdom. And if Hyrule Kingdom is not there, then that to me that sucks, because Zelda is my thing. So that's just kind of confusing to me.
Yeah,
I thought Super Nintendo World was gonna be in tandem with their movies, and I was under the assumption that everything is gonna be under Universal, so they could do the parks alongside of that. But looks like that isn't the case. So I'm curious to see what they do with the Hyrule expansion, if they even plan to do one for this.
I know. Yeah, it is pretty sad, I do have to admit. And You know, Sony is super stingy. Like, another anxiety that I have is, like, you know, Disney wanted Spider-Man back and Sony was like, heck no, you know, holding Spider-Man close to their chest. And, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess at the end of the day, I'm kind of glad that
they had to
Spider-Man
make a
is,
really big compromise with Spider-Man. So basically,
yeah,
Spider-Man was only allowed to be in a certain number of MCU movies, and three of them were required to be like Spider-Man solo movies, but produced by Sony Pictures. And even before, I don't know if you remember this, Skylink, but shortly after Spider-Man Far From Home, and way, way, way before Spider-Man No Way Home, Sony threatened to like cut the deal. They're like, Spider-Man's not going to be in the MCU anymore. We're not having him in.
yeah, I do remember
Th-
that.
Yeah, it was around 2019, right after Avengers Endgame and Spider-Man Far From Home. They were like, we're removing Spider-Man from the MCU, and they had to like come together, work out another deal. Tom Holland had to get on a call with Bob Iger and Avi Arad and all these people just and like they had to figure all this out, and eventually they made it work. They made No Way Home, and he's gonna be still part of the MCU stuff. But like it was like this whole Spider-Man thing was not an easy ride. And like going back to the Avi Arad stuff, like he was the reason Venom was there in Spider-Man 3, and he was the reason that movie was kind of a jumbled mess. I also attribute him being the reason why Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a little bit of a jumbled mess as well.
Yeah.
How though that those two movies were great, but they didn't have really a lot of cohesion and direction. And a lot of the big like comic book people who really wanted like a comic book accurate Peter Parker and Spider-Man story were kind of pushed to the side because of a lot of these creative differences. So I just hope and pray that does not happen with The Legend of Zelda. We'll see. We'll see though. We'll see. Just
Oh,
horror stories to
yeah.
scare us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we just talked about and had so much fun talking about like how fun it is to like make this movie for like majority of our conversation. But going back to like what we said in the very beginning of our conversation, like this is also like kind of sketchy. Like this
Yeah.
whole thing is like Sony like having the ability to produce I was about to say Spider-Man. Sony having the ability to produce a Zelda movie, and Nintendo and Sony being rivals for so long, and you know, and like can a Zelda live action movie even be good? Like this is serious stuff. Like this is actually like I don't even think this discussion alone, and we're like already 2.5 hours, and like even with everything we discuss, like there's still so much more to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so to kind of like get close, like getting pretty close to like wrapping things up here, like are you expecting more than one? Are you expecting
Oh,
sequels?
100%. This will hopefully be successful, and they'll want to make another because Nintendo will want to make another. But I think a sequel is inevitable. But my big thing is this is going to open up the Legend of Zelda series to a whole new audience. It'll open it up to a whole new bunch of people. I think that inevitably means that the next Legend of Zelda game will be somehow influenced by this movie.
And another thing too is like unlike Mario, because Mario was animated, I feel like this movie should also be marketed as like if you've never seen Zelda in your life, like maybe you're older but you love medieval fantasy books or something like that. Like
Mhm.
are you ready for like this new movie with like these great actors and this great story about like a young kid that rises up to the challenge? You know, and it's The Legend of Zelda, like a whole new medieval fantasy movie. Like I really hope that Nintendo also tries to make that a part of this movie's identity, because it's not like, oh, it's the Super Mario Brothers movie. No, this is like live action Legend of Zelda. This on its own has to be like substantial, like
Yeah.
for people who've never even heard of Zelda. I think if Nintendo can win over an audience, like for example, the Lord of the Rings movies is where its popularity came from. Like
Oh yeah.
the books are amazing, but majority of the people saw the movies and did not, read the books. So I'm like, if you're trying to pull that off with Zelda, like majority of the people saw the movies but did not play the video games, that is like a super high caliber that this movie
Yeah.
has to reach. And it's just crazy just thinking about this. Like, you have to like literally make this movie. Like, I have some friends that love medieval fantasy movies, but they don't give like two rats about Zelda. Like, they don't care about the video games, they don't care, but they love medieval fantasy movies. I even had a guy tell me, I'm like, dude, I know the whole Zelda timeline, I can tell it to you right now. And he's like, oh, do you know the whole Lord of the Rings timeline? I'm like, no. He's like, then you're not a nerd. You're not a nerd.
Yeah,
Get out of
man.
here.
Lord of the Rings it's pretty insane.
Yeah, so
It's
I mean,
pretty massive.
yeah, so I'm just like, like how you gotta like turn Zelda up to something that, and like going back to like the whimsical side of things, like if you're gonna like make this at least chasing the legacy that the Lord of the Rings movies had, like maybe it might not reach it, but if it's at least like chasing it, like getting close, then still this movie has to be something so great, and it has to be more than just Nintendo making a live action movie on one of their greatest IPs. This has to be a movie where people who don't even know or care about Zelda are like, okay, I want to see this new medieval fantasy adventure. So yeah, dude, this is like probably the most ballsy move Nintendo I think has ever, at least like with me being a fan of Nintendo, like with my age, like I think this is the most ballsy thing like I have ever seen like Nintendo attempt.
Yeah, this is a very big risk for them. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah, Nintendo's never done a live action movie like this before. They've never worked with live action actors like this before, even not even in their video games. So
yeah,
we'll see how this pans out.
yeah, man. And will you think? Do you think this is gonna be canon to the Zelda timeline? Like it's gonna get its own
No,
slot?
I do not think so. That is an easy answer to an easy question. No, it'll not be canon to the Zelda timeline, especially if it's what I think it is. If it's gonna have references to all the other Zelda games, it will not be. It will not come close to being canon.
I'm okay either way, but I do think it would be kind of cool. But
It would be, yeah. I think it would be cool if it was. I'm not counting on it though.
yeah, I'm not counting on it either. I think that would be crazy. Like, imagine if it's like, imagine if it's like, okay, so what the heck happened before Tears of the Kingdom? Like, why did the Zonai create Hyrule? Well, guess what? Here's a movie about it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, imagine how crazy that would be. Oh man, that would be insane. All right, well, here we are at the last question, Nishquick. When are you expecting this movie to be released?
Nintendo always likes to announce things early. I would say probably 2026, 2027, just to be on the safe side. So I'm not disappointed by waiting for too long.
I feel like if they're gonna make this movie shorter, I mean, and they're gonna tease Ganondorf, or if they're gonna do this all at once with no sequels, and Ganondorf's gonna be in it, and this is gonna be like a one-time thing, like a one-movie wonder, then I want them to take all the time they need. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really care. Like, for once in my life, I finally don't want like a Zelda related thing to come sooner than later, like all my life, like, the waiting for Tears of the Kingdom, waiting for Breath of the Wild, I was like, can it just freaking get here already? This is the one thing where I'm like, dude, this is
I think it's gonna be easier to wait for a movie because the movie will be short-lived. It's just gonna be a 2-hour experience. We'll come home, we'll talk about it. With Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, we've been playing them for hundreds of hours.
yeah.
So the hype just builds up more for games, in my opinion, than a dedicated like feature length film.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyway, Nishquick, any last thoughts out of everything we discussed? Any last things you want to say? kind of tie up any loose ends on any conversations we might have had?
I think that's pretty much it for me. Thanks for having me, Skylink. It was a lot of fun discussing this Zelda movie, which I just need to talk about more to like make it just feel more real, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and like I said, this super long conversation we just had, it's not even. I think we barely scratched the surface. I think there's still so many, like, all these topics that I've said, like, we spent more time on certain topics and spent less time on the other topics. Like,
Yeah.
some of these topics we could literally dive into for a lot longer.
We can make them our own dedicated videos.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you can make a whole video on the casting. You can make a whole video on how long it's going to be. You can make a whole video on PG versus PG-13. You can make a whole video on what other characters are going to be in this. Like, you can make a whole video on all of these things. Like, it's just, there is so freaking much. But anyway, Niche Quick Pops, where can everybody find you? Tell everybody about what type of videos you do if they don't know you already.
Yeah, so you can find me on youtube.com at nishquickpops, and I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at nishquickpops. Also, I'm on TikTok as well. Nishquickpops there as well. I basically talk about Nintendo and JRPGs, mostly focus like the series I guess I focus on the most are The Legend of Zelda, obviously. We've been talking about that. Xenoblade Chronicles, Persona. I've been talking about Persona a bit here and there, especially with Persona 3 Reload coming. I want to talk more about Fire Emblem. I have some really cool Fire Emblem videos in my head. I'll probably do them sometime next year though, because I don't think I have time to do any of that this year. But yeah, basically Nintendo JRPGs. I don't talk about news much, but mostly just discussion and analysis videos about my experiences with my favorite games in those categories. So yeah, thanks again for having me on, and check out my channel for some Game of the Year stuff
Ooh.
coming soon. And Skylink may or may not be a part of some of those as well. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, I am aiming to make a stream. I just moved into the new studio that I made like a couple of posts about. It's still not done yet. Probably one of the main reasons why this video is just like mainly audio. Obviously, there'll be footage over it, but yeah. So I mean, look forward to a lot of videos soon. For me, let's see. I am working on a Zelda theory, and I am working on a Tears of the Kingdom negative. I mean, it's not like a negative video, but it's just like some things that Tears of the Kingdom could have improved on. So those videos are coming soon. They had to be delayed because of this like earthquaking news with the movie. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Niche Quick, thank you so much for being a part of this. It was a long conversation.
Thanks for having me.
But I enjoyed it, man. So thank you so much for being here. All right.
Yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one later.
Alrighty. Signing off. Peace out.
Later.